Hi, Jim. How are you, sir? Good. Hey, how are you? Yeah. Good, huh? Hanging in there, how's that?
That's all we can hope.
Like the rest of us, right? Like the rest of us.
It's hard to go in this direction.
You know how it's hard for my family? My dogs, right? They know exactly what time it is.
Oh, yeah.
Now they want to eat at 4 instead of 5.
Yeah, our little rat lets us know when it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. Good that we have them, right? I'm sorry.
Did the best I could.
The only thing on me. Hi, Dar.
How are you?
Don't tell anybody I took all the red grapes.
What?
I took all the red grapes. Just between me and you. We got Paul. You can ask 3. I'm gonna ask 1. That's a good one.
In the order that we have.
Hi, Neil. Hello. Hello. Hey, Larry, how are you? It's Neil. I do. This is, Larry, this is Neil. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Right? Or how many? You know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm just stepping into a 5 o'clock meeting. How many? I'll get you in. How many and at what time? At what time? Can you come early? It's real crowded, but if you can come early, we can do it. What time did you want to? 5:30 would be all right. I don't have anything till 8:30, 8 o'clock. No,
It's on my
we're
file.
sold out. And honestly, I gotta run. I'm gonna have to call you back. I got a council meeting that I've got to start right now. You know, call the restaurant. Call 471-4888 and talk to them, and they'll get you in. Call the Pepper Tree. They'll get you in. Sorry. I'm sorry, I just have to go. I got 100 people waiting for me. 471-4888. 4888. Yes, sir. 4888.
Here.
Councilmember Cleese. Here. Councilmember LeVar. Here. Councilmember Swinier.
Here.
And Councilmember Sawyer.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
If you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I believe we have no additions, deletions, or corrections. Is that correct, Suzanne? We'll move on to appointment of council liaison to the DDA, and I'm just going to start with Kelly.
Yes, sir.
As we are going to replace you, and I just thought I'd give you the first opportunity to tell people what direction you're going in. After you
One
finish
moment,
that
please. I'm so sorry. Forgive me.
We have great babies.
We have a new one coming.
Well, my green light's on.
There you go.
Can you hear me now? How's that? Good. Good news. I'll get out too. So can I? Okay. Sorry, Kelly.
That's quite all right.
Would you like to start
You gave me a
first?
chance to finish
Good.
my bite.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to. Thank you. Yesterday, I was the monthly Downtown Development Authority meeting, and as has happened in the past, there is I'm in the leadership with my office, my brokerage, and often have found that there's a conflict with our monthly meeting at my office in Colorado Springs. That's the same time as the regular meeting for the Downtown Development Authority, and often I am in conflict with being able to attend. This happened again yesterday, and yesterday at the meeting found out of some new things developing with my office and opportunities, and so out of consideration and respect for this board and the City Council and also the Board of Directors for the Downtown Development Authority, I just think that another representative from the council that could attend on a more regular basis would be prudent, and so I have offered my resignation to the City Council and would leave that in their capable hands to either to accept or whatever they feel is appropriate. I just think that it's the best thing for me to do for my business, and I just foresee more opportunities that would be in conflict. And with everything that's going on and the opportunities that are coming before the Downtown Development Authority, I think it would be more prudent for someone that could attend on a more regular basis than I can. Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
very
Mayor.
much. Thanks for all the time that you've given to the DDA.
It's my pleasure.
Sorry.
And I am always happy. I do have institutional knowledge back to when the DDA was an idea, when I was on staff, so I am always happy to offer my knowledge to the best of my ability. The older I get, I think the less I have the ability to find the location of those storage areas, but happy to always answer and offer input where I can.
Well, we appreciate it. Jason, do we need a motion to accept her resignation?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. We've had this discussion before, Council, and go ahead, Val.
Thank you for your service and your assistance. As always, your expertise is always appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to make a motion that Noel Sawyer, who has exhibited an interest in doing this in the past, be put on the floor for nomination for the DDA liaison.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Noel, you comfortable with that?
Yes, thank you very much. Kelly, thank you for all your help.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate your understanding that sometimes work does conflict and that's a priority of it.
I'm my only breadwinner, and so my business must take priority, so thank you.
And Noel only has 2 jobs, so he'll take
There you go.
good care of them. Okay, that said, Suzanne, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Carr?
Yes.
Harvey? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You better get rid of her. I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. From the roll call, sorry.
I'm sorry. How about let's
I
start over.
guess.
Levy?
Wasn't very nice.
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Case?
Yes.
LeVar? Yes. Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. My apologies.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Congratulations, Noel. And thanks for your interest. You'll do a great job, as you have before. We're going to move on to agenda item number 4, an appointment of the, agenda item number 5. In our city council candidates, the interviewing process, I'm going to leave up to our city attorney, Jason Myers.
All right, so obviously this is council's decision and the process is up to you how you'd like to proceed. Some of the suggestions from staff to make sure that this is a fair process moving forward, that everybody gets an opportunity, is that each candidate have an opportunity to address council, kind of give their pitch as to why they should be on council, give council an opportunity to ask each candidate questions as to what council would like to see out of the candidate. And then we would proceed at that point, after all candidates have had an opportunity to address council, to voting. Given the number of candidates, we have 8. Staff recommends that we do what's called a rank order voting. So the idea being each council member would have an opportunity to choose their first choice and their second choice. That'll hopefully eliminate the as many likelihood of having ties. And so we're not trying to be here all evening voting. So then after that first rank order, it should narrow the field down to 2 or 3 individuals, and council will have an opportunity to vote rank order again. I guess one of the caveats, if there's a unanimous decision on the first choice at the front end, then it wouldn't make sense to continue forward. If you all have the same first choice, that would be the person that would fulfill the council seat.
Or a majority, right?
And that's up to council. Staff's recommendation is to proceed forward if there's not unanimous on the first vote, but if council would like to amend the rules to make sure that it's clear at the front end, whatever council decides, if there's a majority of first choice votes, council has that authority to call it at that point if you'd like to. I would just make sure that we're all on the same page before we start the process as to what the process is.
That would be my recommendation, but discussion on.
So, council, we have 6 of us. We'll need 4 for a majority. The question lies within, if somebody gets 4 and somebody gets 1 or 2, if you have 4 on the first vote, are you going to be good with that? Or should we take the top 2 after the first vote and then re-vote again? Val's in favor of, if there is a simple majority, then we will select that person. Jason's, your approach is a little bit different. You want to just explain it a little bit more?
So the idea being, once you've narrowed the candidate field, people have an opportunity to either readdress council, there can be further deliberations. Again, whoever this person is going to be your colleague for the next 4 months, and perhaps having more than 4 votes would be appropriate, but certainly it's up to council to make that decision.
Thoughts, council? No.
I'm okay with a majority vote.
I kind of lean towards what Jason is suggesting.
Kelly? Oh, I'm sorry.
I would agree. I'm leaning towards what Jason suggested.
And I'm kind of leaning towards a majority. I think if we get 4 on the first vote, it's pretty clear.
Also a super majority, so.
So we have a consensus that we'll go with a simple majority if we get it.
That's fine.
We good with that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, to make sure that we're all on the same page, make sure that you have your first and second choice. I know some council members might only care to vote for one, but it helps the integrity of the process to make sure we vote both first and second choice. Also, for those that are candidates, I want to remind you that this is a nonpartisan position. Your party affiliation out in the rest of the world might be important, but in here it's not. So I'm not going to tell you what to say during your speech, but again, I just want to remind those candidates that are here that it is nonpartisan, and also ensure that you understand that this is an appointment to fill the vacancy till the end of the regular term, which is April. So that's only a 4-month or so appointment, and then you'd have to run for election just like anyone else.
Thank you.
That covers everything.
Sounds good. Questions?
Well, are we going to have, after each, how do we want to do the order of?
I'll tell you
Do we
right
want to
now.
have people come up and
Tell you right now.
Talk
We're
about
going to start, and we're going to go in alphabetical order. And we will sequester the other 7 applicants. And candidates will come to the microphone and make a presentation on their behalf. Council will take some time to ask a couple of questions, depending on how many they have. Probably will be the same to each candidate. If, in fact, one of the candidates has someone that would like to speak in their behalf, I would recommend that you sign up at the sign-up sheet in the back of the room and put the name of the person that you're supporting, and I'll probably give you about a minute. If one of the candidates or the folks that want to come and speak, if there's 3 or 4 of you, we don't want to hear the same thing about how great the person is, what he's done, this or that. So be sure and bring new information. We've got 8 candidates. We've got about a 2.5-hour window, and so we'd like to keep this moving and everybody be respectful. So council, unless you have any other questions, we're going to get started. Okay, Kip will sequester the other 7, and in alphabetical order, we will start with Donald DeZellem. Before Donald gets started, while he walks up and everyone else walks out, just so everybody knows, we have a candidate qualification affidavit from all the candidates that says, A, they've been a citizen of the United States for not less than 7 years. They are at least 21 years of age. They've been a resident of Woodland Park for 12 consecutive months. They're not a salaried employee of the City of Woodland Park, and they have not been convicted of a felony. Okay, that said, Mr. DeZellem, you have the floor.
My name is Donald DeZellem. I live at 402.5 Maple Street here in Woodland Park. I've been a resident of the town now again for about 2 years. Previous to that, I moved here in 1991 and lived here in town, managed McDonald's here in town for about 10 years or so. And then,
Excuse me 1 second, they're going to turn your mic on.
much better.
Thank you very much.
I came out here to manage McDonald's here in town and did that for probably about 8 years or so. Went into insurance after that up here with the Allstate agency up here. After that, I went to work for a storage company. Had to move down to the Springs because it provided residency for me. I was able to live on site. I got a job back up here about 5 years ago, and for 3 tried to get back up here. So I understand the plight of people looking for affordable housing and looking for housing up here. It did take me a while to get back up here, but I finally succeeded. I have been attending city council meetings regularly for about 1.5 years, 2 years now. And I'm very interested in helping the city go in the direction of the future. I feel that the town, we have processes. Some of them are outdated right now to move into the future. And I know that the council has been working on fixing those processes through the charter revisions, through looking at the planning and the zoning revisions. But I'd like to very much be a part of that in the future. So I guess if there's any questions or anything.
Thank you very much. Noel, would you like to start?
No, I'd like to go alphabetical.
No, you're going to start.
Okay. Don, thank you for being here. Appreciate your commitment to this community. Yes, you got me for a year and a half, probably the ones I worked with. One of the things that
Mike?
One of the things that we struggle at council is looking at the future of this community. And it is our goal to plan for 5-10 years out and make sure that we do it right. So my question to you is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park.
Woodland Park is going to need to grow, and it's going to be painful to a lot of people because they've moved here for the quaint little town that it is. But I feel there's a balance there to where we can still retain our uniqueness as a small mountain town and still grow and bring in the businesses in the facilities and such that people that are moving here are looking for and aren't finding. And I see us being able to do that if we get our ducks in a row as far as zoning, planning, and such. So I see that as being very important in moving Woodland Park into the future.
Thank you. Paul?
How would you do that? And thank you. I appreciate you coming to the council meeting. I know you are calling for it. And even actually put your application in. Regardless of what happens tonight, I hope to see you here in Chambers as a council member, even if you have to go into the election. With that said, how do you envision the growth with the traffic problem we have?
As much as I hate to say the word, but a bypass around the town is going to need to be a necessity eventually. And the plans for it need to start now because of the process that it'll take to acquire the land and such to put that in. And there are towns where even though the highway bypasses going through the center of town have been able to retain their economic life and such. Manitou would be an example of that. The highway used to run right through the center of town, and now Highway 24 is up and out of town. It's a loop to go into town if you want to, but they've made it a designation where people want to go there, and we can do the same thing here. 67 is another issue. That one, there's no good bypass to that one. It wouldn't be feasible or anything, and that's going to have to take some work with us and CDOT to figure out what is the most economical way to make that road work through town. If it's expanding it out into more lanes, if it's improvements such as more lights, turn lanes, acceleration, deceleration lanes in places, that's what we got to look at.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
Hillary?
Hi.
Hi.
We've never met,
No, we haven't.
but I've always seen you here and I appreciate it. And I think I've seen you at work before.
Yes, you have.
So, my mic? Oh. Oh, this computer mic tonight. Is it working okay? Is it on? It's on.
Mute.
It's off mute too. Is it not working? Paul, do you want to share?
Sure, I have no problem sharing with the lovely Hillary.
Thank you. Is that better? Okay, good. So you mentioned that the government is outdated in their process, and You do think it's important for the town to grow, and it will grow, whether anyone likes it or not. So are you thinking government is the solution to growth or private industry?
It's a combination. Private industry has to work within the rules that the government gives them to work within. Obviously you can't build something in a place that isn't zoned for it or isn't appropriate for it. So government needs to do their part and make sure that zoning and planning codes and such are up to date and current and able to be taken and adjusted through the process for the future. In a lot of cases, we're dealing with stuff that hasn't been touched in many years, and it's kind of coming back and biting the city. And now we're finding out that we need to go through and make those changes. I guess I'm just calling for the city and its government to be a little bit more proactive in the future, to be looking a little further, maybe in advance, looking at trends that are going on, that type of thing.
Proactive instead of
Right.
reactive. Okay, thank you.
Kelly?
Good evening. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your applying and your desire to serve. I would just be curious and interested to hear your position on fiscal policy and how you would approach the management of the city's resources and expenditures, and what your philosophy and your basis is with regards to that.
I am very, very conservative with my fiscal policies. I don't think you should spend money, and if you don't have it, for things that you don't really need. You need to take a look at what needs to be done, balance it out against your revenue, and choose the projects that are in things that are going to give you the best bang for your buck. I mean, if we've got streets that are falling apart and the aggregate is completely gone and they're full of potholes and stuff, and we want to spend money to do something like put up a restroom at a park facility that already has restrooms or something, we need to use that money for the roads. But at the same time, we also need to take a look at our budget, keep our reserve, keep it current, keep building it, so that we have things and money available in the future for things like water rights and things like that that come up, kind of unexpectedly, but we need to jump on them when they come up. So, we have that balance there of bringing in and controlling our budget and providing the needs for the city.
Thank you.
Val?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions are going to be the same for everybody. I have 3 yes/no questions, but they're really information questions. They're not really that, so I'm just going to blurt them out and let you respond to them. I can read them pretty fast. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations? Number 2, are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time, unless it's a genuine social gathering, and even then you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance? And thirdly, maybe the most important, are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
Yes.
So those are 3 areas that some of us learned the hard way up here. Thank you. Thank you for replying also.
Thank you. Okay, Don, my question's pretty simple. This council has had its ups and downs, and And so my question for you is, if you're sitting in that empty seat, how are you going to make us better?
I'm going to contribute. I'm going to do my research, do my due diligence. I can't even speak tonight on things that are being presented, and I'm going to do and make the best decision for the city and for the people of it. I'm not going to base it on my own emotion, my own gut, my own beliefs, but I'm going to base it on what's going to be the best overall for the citizens and for the city.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Council, any other questions? Okay, you can have a seat while Norm Michaels is going to come up and speak on your behalf. I don't know if you heard me before, Mr. Michaels, but we're going to try to keep this to no more than 60 seconds, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. Norm Michaels, I live at 1051 Wagon Place, Woodland Park. I just have a few things about Don DeZellem. Number one, or a few things that Don DeZellem isn't, which are important that I think for being on the city council. Number one, he's not a bully. Number two, he's not a wuss, and he won't back away from doing what's right. Don is not the type to seek a position for control or manipulation of others, but Don is a servant. This one title is the best summation of Don's attitude toward life. As a servant, Don serves his church, his community, his neighbors, his employer, and his family. I've known Don DeZellem for about 18 years, and I have known him in many of these roles that I mentioned. Don gives and gives, even while he has little. It is not uncommon to see Don helping those with little resources. Don is consistent and steadfast. Many in this room know Don since he consistently attends and participates in these and other community meetings, even without official position. He simply cares about us and his community. Don is a man of integrity. He doesn't give in to evil in any form, no matter how little, no matter how much the current world changes our standards. As a manager, Don does things the right way, and as a leader, Don does the right thing. Finally, Don is loyal. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Okay. Council, we will move on. And Kip, if you'll bring in Nathan Gross, please. Good evening, Nathan.
Hi.
The floor is yours.
All right. Do I need to say my address or anything?
You can if you'd like. Once you start with your name, we'll go from there.
My name is Nathan Gross. I live at 924 Stone Park Lane. I'm just going to start with a relatively brief statement and then open it up for questions. I also have another statement. If it doesn't come up in the questions, I'd like to just say it at the end, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'm not the type of person to assume that I should be in a position over objectively parallel peers. Woodland Park City Council is a great example of what I'm trying to say here. It's when respectable peers approach me with such an idea that I feel not only qualified but duty-bound to consider such a position. I could tell you it's because I love this city, I grew up here, I know lots of people, I care, I can make a difference. These statements are true, but they're generic to the point of meaningless. It's just what people want to hear. I'm here making this statement today because influential friends, family, and local business people believe in who I am and what I have to offer, enough to say, Nate, you should run for city council. And I just want to open it up for questions.
Great, thank you very much. Noel?
Nathan, thank you for being here. Sometimes it's tough to do the public speaking, and I learned the hard way myself.
Nathan, thank you for being here. As a council, we're challenged with the future of Woodland Park. We make decisions that can affect our community 10, 20, in some cases 40 years out. Believe it or not, the bypass is a perfect example. If we had made the decision back in the 70s or 80s, we'd have a bypass now. We'd probably have a city that is bustling with business. But we don't. So my question to you is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park.
Someday I'd love to live in a woodland park where local high school and college graduates look forward to joining its business economy, rather than the first opportunity to leave it. This helps keep families close. It allows for new progressive businesses and ideas to move into the area. We have, for the most part, a conservative base here. That doesn't have to change for a city to be progressive. And that's what I feel like I have to offer to Woodland Park as a city council member. I see youth in city government as a giant step forward, and youth plus an entrepreneurial mind, which is what I have. I take a lot of pride in that, equals an added perspective. So to answer your question, I'd like to see people actually stick around in this economy. I think that's a great first step and a great way to start building something.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, it's so nice to see you. I welcome your youth and your enthusiasm. Is my mic working? No. Okay.
There you go.
I'm on now, buddy. Thank you so much.
I could hear you before.
Did you enjoy the cone of silence we have in the back there?
You've got a good group of folks back there.
Good. With your ideas, how would you handle it with the logistics in town, the highway transportation, to bring forth this economic development that you're talking about, and to keep our youth and our people working in this town? How do you overcome such a difficult situation?
I think it starts with having youth in city government. I think it basically puts a welcome, come on in sign back up for them, to be frank. I think a city where youth doesn't feel like it belongs because they have no say in anything is they're just going to go to where more progressive, youthful thoughts happen, which, you got places like Portland. I spent a lot of time there. I didn't necessarily go there for that, but I learned all about it and got a pretty, an added perspective of what that looks like. It was a city where you go into a restaurant, you don't see anybody over the age of 40 in there. To the point where when my parents would come and visit, they felt odd. They felt odd about it, about being in certain positions, certain rooms with, and I've got nothing against, I have a lot to learn, and I couldn't ask to be surrounded by a better group of people to learn from, and I think you do need that, decades of experience in the world to make big decisions, and I really hope to learn from that.
Hillary?
Hi, Nate.
Hi, Hillary.
What do you think the proper role of government is?
I feel like the proper role of government is to basically enact the rules that already exist. I feel like when you look at the Constitution, we've got a set of rules and laws, and I feel like the role of government is to enlist those things, and basically we're a structure. Government is a structure as far as using those rules and laws that already exist. If you want to change a rule or a law, that's one thing, but as far as the government and voting, it needs to be unbiased, and it needs to be based on the rules that already exist.
Thanks.
Kelly.
Hi, Nate.
Hi, Kelly.
Take a deep breath. Nobody's going to bite you. We're just having a conversation, okay? I just sense a little bit of tension and a little nerves, so I just wanted to give you a minute to take a breath, relax, and know that we're not going to bite. So my question for you is, thank you for being here. Thank you for applying and for your interest in serving. My question comes from my background, which is in finance and fiscal policy. And what I'd like to know from you is where are you grounded? What is your perspective when it comes to fiscal policy? How do you approach a budget? How do you approach your management of fiscal policy? And how would you translate that into the city? Did I make any sense at all?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I own and operate a business, and I understand the importance of being fiscally conservative, and that's definitely where I stand fiscally. Definitely a more fiscally conservative person. That's not to say that in certain situations in business that you can't be more aggressive fiscally, but it needs to be very well thought out, and yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Nate. How are you doing?
Hi, Val.
We on council learn lessons the hard way, and so I'm going to give you 3 questions that are really more informative than they are questions, or yes and no questions, but here we go. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations? You may or may not be aware of that. Secondly, are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time, which might include some of us sitting here, unless it is genuine social gathering, and even then you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance. Lastly, are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
I was aware of the second one. I was not aware of the first or third. But I can say, honestly, I would not have put my name in for this if I didn't have the time to spend.
Thank you. Part of this is an informative process that some of us learned the hard way, so thank you.
Thanks, Nate. My question's kind of twofold. First, if you're not selected today, will you intend on running in the city election April 7th for mayor? And 2, I don't know how many...
For mayor and
excuse
council.
Me, for mayor and council. For mayor or council, excuse me.
You're giving away all your secrets.
I know, huh?
If I don't get elected to council, I'm definitely running for mayor.
Good for you.
I'm just kidding.
Good luck. Second question is, excuse me, you probably heard about the workings of this particular council over the last couple of years, and some ups and downs that we may have had, some challenges. If you're sitting in that empty seat, how do you make us better?
As far as the first part of your question's concerned, I was already planning to run in the next election. So yes, of course, I would continue down that path. As far as what I have to offer, I mentioned a bit of it earlier. I see youth in city government as a giant step forward. Youth and an entrepreneurial mind, as I mentioned before, equals an added perspective. I think it's a perspective that isn't lost necessarily on council, but I think it could be worth something. I'm a young professional looking to see this city progress so that I can build a career and a future here. We can't be afraid of responsible growth. And I guess my youth and my entrepreneurial mind, I feel like, can bring forth an opportunity for responsible growth, and anything that I've ever put my mind to, I've done well. And this is something I'd like to put my mind to.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. There's nobody on my list that's speaking in your behalf. So.
Mayor?
I'm sorry?
May I ask another question?
You may.
I think he's got about 2 more minutes.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to just continue on. You talk about you have an entrepreneurial mind. My initial question was describe your future vision of Woodland Park, and my intro to that is that we could have made decisions 40 years ago that there was an actual vote for the bypass. The bypass vote passed, but yet we still don't have a bypass. So I look at what we've done in the last 4 years. We've got Aquatic Center. We've got Memorial Park remodel, wastewater plant expansion. We've got a future reservoir coming. So thinking of things like that, what do you think could be next? What does this town need?
I've always thought this town needed more nightlife, which I know is not a new thought. It's not very unique, but I think it would be a heck of a starting place as far as having something that draws people in. I'd love to come up with some much better ideas. I would need to put some serious thought into that, though, Mr. Sawyer.
It is a tough question, and I remember talking to the newspaper when we were opening the Aquatic Center, and my first thought is, what's next? We have a lot. We have a lot to offer in this community, and so really, it'll be tough. It'll be a challenge to think of what we could bring to this community to make it even better.
It is. That is a very difficult question, but I'm very confident that I could come up with some interesting ideas.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nate, thanks again. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Darwin Nacarado.
Oh, do you want to share mine? Sharon? I'm Kelly Sharon. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Where did they?
Good evening, Darwin.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
You fixed it.
Fine, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council, staff. You seem to be, well, just two of you, I guess. I'm honored to stand before you this evening. Why am I here? Well, that's an age-old philosophical question that I've struggled with for years and still don't have the answer. But more to the point, in the specifics of why am I here tonight, I'm going to make this very, very brief. My thought, and forgive me, I've got a sore throat and I'm starting to work on that a bit. My thought process was pretty simple. Our city needs to fill a vacated council seat. Who can do this job? That's my question to myself, and I'm sure it's the question you're asking of yourselves, or probably have thought about it, who can do this? Of course, given time, any number of people might well be suited to do it, including the 7 other people back in that room who I've had the pleasure of visiting with for the last several minutes. But we don't have the luxury of time. I therefore concluded that I might be well suited for the role, given my general familiarity with council, staff, and a general understanding of how things work in this city. I think I can begin contributing to council efforts immediately, literally tonight. Oh, of course, I know there's a myriad of details to get up to speed on very quickly, but I've always told my team, bring it on. You cannot over-detail me. I promise calm, level-headed, deliberate, civil, polite discourse in my endeavor to understand all perspectives, and a fair, impartial, logical, and reasonable approach to arriving at consensus-building solutions and conclusions. I'm a servant leader. Well before this was recognized leadership style, as I quickly realized that the higher I moved and climbed that corporate ladder, the more people I worked for, not the other way around. And I believe that's true of this position as well. We serve all the great people of Woodland Park. Those are your bosses, right? I also believe, and I fully understand, that I can't please all the people all the time. But this is why we have a representative democracy. Indeed, it's a republic, rather than a pure democracy. James Madison famously said about democracies, they have in general been as short in their lives as they've been violent in their deaths. Therefore, if selected, I will represent to the best of my ability. You know me already. You know of my love for our city. You know my capabilities, and you know what you're getting. And I'm ready to go to work. So, again, if elected, I will represent to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Noel, would you like to start, or you want to change the order? Sure. Go right ahead.
No, I'll go ahead. Mr. Nacarado, thank you for being here. I'm glad to see that we have a lot of people running for council. That shows a commitment to from our community. My question has kind of been changing a little bit. This is going to be a 2-part question. Let me ask both questions first, and then I'll let you go ahead and answer. The first question is as a council, we deal with 5, 10, 20 years into the future. We hope we make the right decisions so the future generations are going to have a community that prospers and continues to grow, and they want to raise their families here. So the first question I have is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. The second question is, in the last 4 years, we've added the Aquatic Center, we've done the Memorial Park remodel, we've done the wastewater plant expansion, and in the near future, we're going to add a reservoir so we have water, reserve water for almost a year. What's next?
Thank you. Future, what's my vision for the future of Woodland Park? I like the trajectory that we're on. I like it very much. I liked it many years ago when we moved here. I like the idea of this mountain town that was a wonderful place to live, with a bunch of residents that are committed to the city and are here because they want to be. Nobody forced anybody to live in this community. I love that. We have a lot of retirees here. I'd like to see a lot more young folks decide that it's a great place to stay after they finish school, say at Woodland Park, in the Woodland Park school system. So that trajectory, we keep improving. You know, when I first started coming to Woodland Park, I hate to give my age here, but the streets were still dirt, shall we say. I liked it. I liked it even then. But look what's happened since. If we can maintain a trajectory, and you rattled off the things that the city's accomplished, the park has become, Memorial Park has become something else. I drive by it, I go out of my way to drive by it every time I'm out, because I want to see how many people are there enjoying it, and there's always, I don't even when it's really cold, there are people out there enjoying the park. It's a great thing. Second part of that question is, what's next? Let's keep on keeping on. Let's make it even better.
Thank you.
Paul.
Okay, buddy.
Okay.
I know you, you know me.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you a question about maintaining the quality of life in Woodland Park, the standards of living, economic development, how to bring these all together with our transportation system to promote this mountain town that you loved when you came here with dirt streets that are no longer dirt streets, and our highways are backed all the way back to Colorado Springs. And people are moving here because of the explosion along the Front Range and Mid-America being a sweet spot. It's not going to stop. We're going to keep developing. We're going to keep growing. How do you handle this complicated problem?
Well, fortunately, I won't have to handle it on my own. But if I were elected king instead of council member, I would do a lot of things that we're already doing. I think it's critical that the water issue and nailing down that reservoir issue with the Boy Scout, whatever that's called, I don't know the technical name for what it is, but nailing that down, I think, is critical. We've got to control our own destiny when it comes to that. And I wish Kip were sitting right here.
He is. He's right back there.
There he is.
Well, then I won't say anything too much. But I think that needs to be nailed down. And I think all of the things that I mentioned in response to Mr. Sawyer's questions apply to this as well. If we don't continue on that upward trend, we won't be able to do that. We won't be able to assure the quality of life of our mountain town. We'll get overrun. We'll get taken over. Not by people moving in and changing it. I don't mean that at all. We'll get left in the dust by other communities. That ain't going to happen. We're going to be Woodland Park first.
How do you capture the traffic? How do you spur economic development without transportation system? How do you improve our transportation system? That's the question I'm asking.
I see. With specifically transportation.
Well, you can talk about anything you want, but that's what I'm asking.
All right. Well, I do believe that I know that we don't control our own destiny when it comes to CDOT. CDOT controls its destiny and does what it's going to do. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be lobbying the heck out of them to do what we need them to do. And that might include the bypass that we've talked about forever that's off in the future. I understand it's in the plan. but I don't know that I'll be around to see it happen. Those things need to happen, though. Also, in addition to our dirt streets that we had when I first started coming to Woodland Park, the past was just 2 lanes.
Believe it or not, I've lived in Colorado for 37 years, and I have come up here many times in the early times living here to hunt for gems and rocks and things like that. I have seen Woodland Park go through a transformation.
Absolutely.
But I thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your willingness to fill that chair. And I hope to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hillary?
Good evening, Darwin.
Hello.
I'm going to ask the same question that I asked earlier. Is what do you believe the proper role of government is?
How much time do I have?
Loaded question.
I've written on this subject, as you probably already know, and discussed it at length in various venues. I don't know how to summarize that view, and that's why I'm slow here, a little bit slow here. Among other things, the government needs to get out of the way. Number one, it needs to provide the environment to encourage growth, promote welfare of its, whether it's residents or citizens or whatever it is, whatever level of government we're talking about. Provide for its safety. Provide for, and I'll quote a famous line, the common defense. I think we've all heard that line before. But government should be limited to the things government should do, in keeping with those principles. It shouldn't be looking around to see what else we can do and what else we can do to get involved in somebody's daily life. It should make their daily lives easier, not harder. I don't know if that answers your question, but thank you.
Kelly?
Hold on. I'm making notes. I don't write very fast. Good evening, Darwin. Thank you for applying. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. My question is with regards to what is your philosophy, what is your thoughts, what is your position when it comes to fiscal responsibility and fiscal management, particularly of public funds? I bet you didn't think I'd ask that question.
There was something that told me you might have something along those lines. As you know, my whole life has been mostly in finance and in that background, and teaching such subjects and so on and so forth. We need to be prepared, and I like to use the phrase, to look around the next corner. That's hard to do, but that's sort of what the role is here. In order to do that, you have to have provided for future needs financially, as well as every other way. But I believe in very conservative financial management. Our unallocated general fund, unrestricted general fund balance needs to be as big as it can be. And I understand I know where we've been. I've seen it at 10.8%. I've seen it at 17.1%. I've seen it at over 20% a few years ago, several years ago. I don't know what the right percentage is, but I think it needs to be as much as it can be. If that answers your question. If not, I'll expand a little bit more.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Well?
Yes, sir. So I have 3 quick yes or no questions, but they're really more information based. Some of us up here, maybe I'm just pointing at myself, had hard lessons to learn, and so I'm going to ask you some questions, but they're really more informative than they are qualifying. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations? That's number one. Are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it's a genuine social gathering? Even then, you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance. And then lastly, are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
Yes. To all three. I guess on the third of the three questions, the time commitment, I've already begun reorganizing things to make sure that that's a possibility.
Thank you.
Darwin, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Mine's kind of a twofold question, too. If you don't happen to be selected this evening, do you fully intend on running for council in the April 7th election? And B, if you are selected and you're sitting at this council, with this council, in short, how do you make us better as a group?
I will admit I hadn't thought about the first question in that order. I sort of thought about it in the reverse order. If I am appointed, will I run in April? But I hadn't really thought about it as if the other way around, as you asked it. But yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I'd be very much inclined to do that, and be very likely. I guess I wouldn't want to commit tonight. That would be a formal announcement, I suppose. But, how can I make the council better? I think I sort of covered that in my opening remarks in a way that, let me approach it this way. I'm a middle kid. I have two older brothers, two younger brothers. Guess what that means psychologically, at least what the shrinks tell me anyway. In my own psych degree from many, many years ago, I'm the peacemaker. I bring the parties together, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I can hear both sides of an argument. I want to know all sides of an argument. I want to know all perspectives on every issue, and I encourage it. In fact, I teach that. I mean, isn't that what higher education's all about? I don't know if it is these days, but that's what it's supposed to be about. I think I can help do that. I'm not saying I can do it alone. I think these people would be wonderful to work with, and I see no reason why I couldn't, if that answers your question.
And it did very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, council, unless you have any other questions, we have two folks that would like to speak on behalf of Mr. Nacarado. So, Darwin, you can have a seat. I think Kip will probably take care of you, but you can certainly stay and listen to Bill Powell, who will start.
Good evening. My name's Bill Powell. I live at 2995 Sunnywood Avenue, out on the fringe there. I'd like to say a few words about DAR. My wife and I have lived here since 1996. I've known Dar about half that time. Interestingly, we met at a political event, and after that we've been socially active probably once or twice a month for all those years. You have his professional resume, so there's not much I can tell you about him being a CFO, a COO, a professor, doing his own startup, running his own business. And you've also worked with him quite a bit, I understand. Got a list of committees. I only have a minute, so I don't want to go over them. The mayor asked a question about how he could help. First, he's a smart, critical thinker, what I would call a serious man. He knows his own mind, and he's also a team player. He mentioned that, but I can attest to it from listening to him over many meetings. He's also a humble individual. He doesn't toot his horn a lot, and I like that. He says what he says what he feels, and then he acts on it. Sometimes he doesn't say it and acts on it, but most importantly, I can attest that he is a man of high integrity because he always pays his bar tabs. Couple that with what he went over. He's willing to listen. He gets not just one viewpoint. He's been in the middle of several of hot discussions between myself and an unnamed member here. You couple all those things together, you get a fair-minded man, open, to reinforce, I think you'll find him well-informed on most of the questions, most of the issues, in fact, that you talked about. So, in my 1 minute, I would say experience, competence, integrity. Can't ask for too much more. Finally, he is a patriot. He believes in America, and he believes in this community. Dar would fill this bill almost perfectly. And he'd be a terrific asset to the council and a great servant to this public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Stephanie Alfieri.
Hello, Stephanie Alfieri, 402 Forest Edge Lane, Woodland Park. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So obviously I'm here to speak in support of Darwin. I had a lot of great points typed up, and I'll say he probably spoke to them better than I could have. So, he spoke to, obviously, he has extensive knowledge of government, what its roles, responsibilities, and limitations should be. I currently serve with him on the Charter Review Committee, although I've known him prior to that, and it's been interesting to see how he interacts with that committee. It's not always easy, but it's been very productive. And he always maintains a level of decorum and respect in those meetings that is absolutely necessary up here on the dais. And that's something that not everybody does get to see. The one thing that I did want to mention that probably a lot of people aren't aware of about him is he has this certain unique characteristic of being able to empathize with how various outcomes will affect a whole variety of people. It's something that I don't see very often. I wouldn't say it's unique, but it is rare. And I've been able to experience that in working with him. It's interesting to come across someone like him because I get the privilege to interact with a lot of people in this community, number of issues, wide variety of opinions. We joke, but it's kind of true. Nobody in this community can agree on anything. But when it comes to Darwin, when you see him interact with people, when you hear people talk about him, they always talk about admiring and respecting him, whether they agree with him or not, which is absolutely necessary to be able to do this job and what we want from a city council member. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. We will move on to Paul Neal. Suze, do you have that letter for Paul Neal from Diane? Do you have a copy of that? Well, I'm good if it's with Paul Neal.
They're having too much fun in there.
What was that? Better snacks. I'll just see if you can find me a coffee. I can find it on my phone if I need to.
I assume right here, Neil?
Perfect, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, sir.
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. My name is Paul, but I prefer to go by Rusty. And I'm here to share with you my reasons for applying for the position and to share with you what I feel are important issues that are before the City Council. I bring with me my experience in both the government sector and the commercial sector. I'm retired, which gives me a good amount of time to offer my experiences to Woodland Park, and I believe I would be an asset to help the city be better. I've spent 26 years in the military. I did graduate from West Point, the United States Military Academy, which I entered in 1973. I had the honor of completing my military career by being selected to and working for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I had the great experience of being the lead for the second largest IT system, information technology system in the Department of Defense. And the system was the equivalent of a readiness reporting system. When President Clinton was in office, and that exposed me to a political world that is actually very large compared to a city government, but it did introduce me to the world of politics. And I had to meet with congressional aides, congressional leaders, secretarial level staff, the undersecretary himself, and present material that was highly political. Readiness was a big thing back in the 90s. And so I learned through those job encounters the world of politics and negotiation between two absolutely opposing philosophies. After that, I retired in 1999 and went to the commercial sector, where, because of my IT background, I was able to land a fairly nice position in an IT company. It was an international company. I was a vice president and CTO, operating in 15 countries. So I had the opportunity to work with managing directors of countries, 15 of them. And I can tell you that if you think getting the citizens of Woodland Park to negotiate, try getting a British and a German managing director to agree to cooperate together. It's just there are emotional things that are so deep-grained for decades that they just won't. So you learn the art of what might be possible and where there are gray areas that they might say words like yes but, which gives the illusion that they've agreed to something, but they're really opposing to it. So there's a lot of negotiations that take place at that level. I've had those experiences, and I would like to bring some of that forward for some of the issues that you deal with. Anyway, I bring a very diverse background, handling politically charged issues and ways to find compromises and solutions. And that leads me to why I applied and what are the pressing issues. Simply, I feel I have the experience and background to help the city's government be better at dealing with issues, and it will not be an OJT experience for the city. I think I've seen things that will make me well prepared to assist you. As for the pressing issues, when I completed the application, I listed 3 things, and they were some topics that were bouncing around the social media outlets at the time. However, having watched the process over the past few weeks, current processes, I kind of want to backtrack on some of my answers and give you really what I think 3 of the pressing issues are. I do stand on the affordable housing as a very pressing issue for Woodland Park. So that has not changed from what I put in my written application. However, I'd like to take the other 2 and just say that I think there's a need to improve the financial health of Woodland Park. I don't know all the details of the financial health, but at least a superficial level, I think it's an area that could use some assistance, and I think I can help in that area. Finally, I think there needs to be an effort to determine and establish what is the future of Woodland Park. I know we're working on strategic plans, but when I watch the discussions about the DDA and how do we handle this, how do we handle that, I think there needs to be a concerted effort to figure out what is Woodland Park really going to be known about, and that's not an easy topic. So I think that is something that needs to be addressed by the City Council. I look forward to living in Woodland Park for many years, and I stand ready to answer your questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Noel, would you like to start?
Yes, Mr. Neal, thank you for being here tonight.
No.
It's a big commitment. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you talked about the future because that's a segue into my questions. I have 2 questions. I'm going to read both questions, and then I'll let you go ahead and answer them. As you know, part of your job on council is to plan the future of our community 5, 10, 20, in some cases 40 years out when it comes to a bypass. In the late 70s, Woodland Park actually voted for a bypass and it passed. But some individuals in the community squashed it, and today we don't have a bypass. So my first question is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. All right, so the second part of my question is, we have the Aquatic Center, Memorial Park remodel, wastewater plant expansion, and eventually we'll have a new reservoir that will allow us to have water for 1 year if we had a drought. What's next?
Okay. Let me address your questions like this. I'm 64 years old. Growth is inevitable. No matter what people want and how they want to keep Woodland Park, the small mountain town, it's going to grow. It's going to grow. The population is growing. So I see Woodland Park growing. It is going to grow, and I'm going to encourage growth. But what I would like to do is have the ability to influence the growth and the decisions of the developments that do come in, so that we're drawing quality, because quality begets quality. It lifts people that may not have had a fortunate start in life, but if you surround them with quality, it sucks them up, versus if you do not bring quality in, and everything gravitates to the lowest common denominator. Even if you go high, the lowest of the high is what everything will gravitate to. So if you allow low quality developments, poor quality developments, and you're not thinking about the future, everything's going to gravitate downward to that level. If you aspire to higher level quality development items, even those that have never had the opportunity to reach up and grab something good, it just naturally will happen. So my vision is quality coming into Woodland Park.
Thanks. And then the second question was, we've provided a beautiful aquatic center. We've remodeled Memorial Park. We've expanded the wastewater treatment plant because by law we needed to, but it also will accommodate more population growth. Reservoir we're having soon, which will be 1 year of water if we have a drought. Thinking of all those things and maybe some possible other things, what else do we need? What's next?
Well, before I talk about what else we need, because I honestly can't tell you what else we need, I look at those assets as being underutilized. I look at the Aquatic Center. My God, that is, first, it's very expensive, probably a lot more than what we ever need for a small mountain town. However, the potential of that aquatic center is so underutilized. And I was just thinking about it this morning, which is kind of ironic, because I knew there would be questions. And the thing that came to my mind was, we've got this aquatic center. When was the last time you saw a major marketing campaign or advertisement for a major event to bring people in? It's a community asset. When have we put together something to draw a social event, community-wide? Come on over, put your swimsuit on in the middle of the winter and get warm in the aquatic center and do something that would bring in revenue to the aquatic center and utilize it It's very underutilized. So I think my answer to your question is, I would look at the resources you have right now and figure out ways to better utilize them so that they're attaining the quality that they could be. I think we're here, but I'd love to see up here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No.
Paul? Thank you, Rusty. Full disclosure, I know you, you know me.
We have spoken, yes.
I haven't prompted you on anything. I have seen you here. I have watched you present. I have heard what you said here. I like what I hear. But I want to probe your intellect. My question is on transportation. It could be a multi-pronged question, depending on how you take it. With Woodland Park, Highway 24 coming through, the logistics, all that goes along with that highway, the congestion, the sweet spot of the central part of the United States being Colorado, our beautiful climate, western town, people coming in droves. They're naturally migrating up here. The traffic is becoming worse. The quality of life is falling. I want to know what you think and how you would handle or look at this situation to capture traffic in town for economic development, to spur economic development, encourage business to come to Woodland Park, and grow in a managed way, a controlled way, a sensible way. Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, excuse me, if you're trying to expose my intellect, I'll reveal it right now. I don't know anything about traffic analysis of Woodland Park. However, I can see the issue. The issue is, and they're competing. Some people want the traffic to just get out of here and just bypass it, just unclutter the streets. At the same time, that's all the revenue, just bypassing and not stopping and spending it here. So what you have to do is come up with, if you think of Manitou Springs, it's kind of an interesting city. It's got a, 24, it goes right past it. But there's major detour routes have been brought right through the center of town, so that there's very sufficient traffic patterns going to, in my opinion. I've never experienced a log jam in Manitou Springs. They have managed to put on and off ramps at key places, at the north and the south part of Manitou Springs, where you can get in, get down into the shops, they spend their money, and then they go on their way. Those that are not drawn down in there, they go ahead and have a way to bypass it. I think Woodland Park needs something similar. You need a bypass to get people that no matter what you do, they're going to go. We would like them to just go ahead and go through. You can't force people to spend money if they're just trying to blow through town. You can't. However, and this goes back to coming up with what is the vision of Woodland Park? What are we going to be known for? What is going to cause people to want to say, I want to stop at Woodland Park and tour it? And I think there's a couple things. We've got, just a crazy idea. You look at Estes Park. They're known for their elk. We've got a deer population that some people think is out of control, some people don't. You could turn this into Estes Park South in terms of people coming up and tour the deer parks, see the deer. Anything that you could brainstorm to give Woodland Park an identity that would put it on a tourist itinerary, so that they would want and intentionally come here to stop. So you need access at the southern part and the northern part, so they can come in, bypass, do their shopping, touring, and then get back on. I'd have to work with engineers to find out what the topography looks like to see what's possible. I've heard that there is a topographical capability to have a bypass, as well as the on and off ramps of coming into Woodland Park. So I would pursue having a bypass with clear ways to get into Woodland Park, but that's all moot if you don't have a reason for people coming here. And just having an aquatic center, I don't think is going to just draw people. They're just not going to stop, hey, let's stay at the aquatic center. If there's no marketing of a big event at the aquatic center, if there's no deer park to come and watch deer, we know they're all tame. They're not like wild animals, but in a controlled way, we could use it to our advantage. I hope that's adequate.
Hillary.
Good evening, Mr. Neal. I have 3 questions in a way. They all kind of tie together with you mentioning affordable housing and that being one of your priorities that you're interested in. My first question is, have you ever read Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt?
No, I have not.
Have you ever read I, Pencil?
No, I have not.
I would recommend you read those books because I think you're a man of intellect and I think you appreciate education, as do I.
I do.
Who would pay for the quality of the housing that you describe and the affordable housing that you're interested in?
Well, let's be clear on what the definition of affordable housing. By the government, affordable means 30% of their income. So if you've been drawing quality into Woodland Park, you're going to be drawing people with a higher income. So what is affordable to somebody that makes a 6-figure salary versus what is affordable to somebody who makes in the low 5 figures are 2 different things.
Right.
So when you say affordable, are we talking low income or are we just talking affordable?
Well, that's my question to you. When you mention affordable housing, are you discussing government affordable housing or just in general affordable housing?
It's not in general. From what I've read, we have a demand for and a lack of starter home, entry-level home affordable housing. In other words, your young families looking to buy their first home, or townhouse or apartment. Well, apartments you usually rent. A townhouse, a condo, something that allows them to establish themselves and they can afford, where they can start building their equity. Whether it's somebody that's making in the mid 5 figures, they can still afford, by their standard, 30% of their income, to acquire something and stay there and start paying it down, see the values go up where they can sell. And the dream, to try to have a stair-step manner to have equity to roll into something better. So it's entry-level, starter families, new single-family professionals, or single breadwinner professionals that are starting is what I believe when I've read the documents I have and watching the feedback. Mr. LaBar's Tamarack Village stirred up a lot of controversy. And what I tried to do was read the social media and not just get sucked into some of the loudest or most vocal individuals. What I tried to do is listen to everybody. There was a large number of people that were actually trying to make points that it was needed. So you had a very vocal group and a very quiet group. But if you paid attention to the numbers, the number of people, the names, it was not as out of balance as you might think. So
my question was, do you think that there should be government subsidized affordable housing in Woodland Park?
I have lived with government-subsidized housing. I'm going way back to my high school days. I lived down the street for a government-subsidized housing development right next to what was one of the nicer housing areas. I think there's a danger to a degree, and it has to be done correctly.
and I'm not sure who is the body that would determine the need. I have, unfortunately, bad experience with seeing people that have subsidized housing abuse it, horribly abuse it. I think there's a need because we have so many people that need help.
Okay.
I just would like to see it controlled, and I'm not sure how possible that is.
Sure.
But that is the controlled, affordable housing, subsidized housing, yes.
And then the question I've asked everyone is, what do you think the proper role of government is?
I'm a small government kind of person. I do like to make people accountable for their own actions, so I like small government. I think the government's role is to present ways that people can help themselves. And there's two different types of people. My wife's in the medical field, so I've been exposed to those that just, no matter what, they need help. So there is a group of people that have to have help. Government, high levels of involvement by social services to help them. But then there are others that, to be quite honest, they just don't aspire to very high levels of anything. I don't think they are entitled. And so those that are in need, whether they have physical or mental impairments that prevent them from being able to help themselves, they need assistance. Those that do not have those impairments, I don't think it's the government's job to. I think a capital society, if you work hard, you're going to be rewarded. If you make those decisions that you'd rather, kick back a little bit, you're going to be rewarded at that level, and I do believe in that.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, and thank you for applying and wanting to serve. We appreciate that.
You're welcome,
Everyone
Kelly.
does. I just want to explore. I've asked about, surprise, surprise, I've asked about fiscal responsibility, your thoughts on fiscal management. You had mentioned that you'd like to help improve the fiscal health of Woodland Park. I'd just like for you to tell me what that means.
Well,
from your perspective.
From my perspective, I have both military and commercial. Every budget I've ever seen, whether it's in the military or in the commercial sector, has a governing vision statement. And for a mission need statement to be prepared, or for just a need statement in the commercial world, it's got to be aligned to a strategic business plan, commercial or a palm side. There is a governing objective that has to be what we're trying to attain. When I look at our budget, I saw what was published. I did not see any columns that on the spreadsheets that said this item is trying to accomplish this. In other words, the direct mapping from the vision to the execution. So I think the first thing I would want to try to help the city council is, you establish a vision document, and I know that there's a lot going on in that department, but you can use your existing one. You really can, until you have a new one. There's got to be an alignment. Somebody's got to align this to this so that establishes it as a need. Everything else is a want. I want this, I want this. Everybody wants things. But what is the need? Well, the vision statement for the city is the need. Everything else goes to the once all of your needs are funded, then you can look at the wants.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Neal, I appreciate you coming forward, and interesting background you have. I appreciate it. I have the same three questions for everybody. They're more of an awareness situation. A lot of us on council here have learned some interesting lessons. So I'm going to, there are three real quick yes/no questions, and you can kind of pay attention and see where you think you answer to these. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Number 2, are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it is a genuine social gathering, and even then you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance?
I am aware of that, but I would need some clarifications on that.
Yeah, we all get clarification from time to time.
Okay.
Are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
I think the answer is yes. Yes, I am prepared to do that. Every one of you have a social life and a professional life, so I will balance it with the demands of my personal and professional life, my wife's professional life at this point in time, but my expectation is to be requiring that amount of time, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here, Mr. Neal. Just 2 quick questions. One relative to that seat, if in fact you are not selected, do you intend on considering running for that seat, which will be open, actually 3 or 4 seats will be open come April 7th, A, and B, simply in a few short words, and you've been to council a number of times and seen us in action, how do you make us better?
Question number 1, I am considering it. Question 2, I hope I have the skills to listen with an open mind. And all I can say is I've had experience with every member, well, not every member of the city staff, but several members of the city staff. Darren I've met with, Jason I've met with, Sally I've met with. We don't always agree on things, but I think the decorum that I have worked with each and every one of them, I think they feel that there's no insults. We've kept it at a business level, professional level, no hard feelings. We just understand we have differences of opinions because the discussions, I try to take it to the factual level versus emotional level. I'm always looking for facts to support any conclusion or decision I make. I think my personality to do that might assist the City Council.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for all your answers. We have one person that will speak on your behalf, and that's Patricia Stinner.
I do.
And Kip and everybody else, so you know, after Patricia speaks, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break. Patricia Stinner. You can go ahead and have a seat if you'd like.
Thank you. Thanks,
Good evening, Council, and thank you for granting me this opportunity to speak on Rusty's behalf. Most of what I had prepared in a 3-minute presentation, Rusty has already answered, so I'm very blessed that you asked him the questions you asked him. The one thing that Rusty didn't speak about, I can attest to. Rusty combines his soldier's heart with a highly educated engineer's mind. He spoke for a moment, and I can validate these statements I'm making. I'm just trying, for the sake of time, to kind of not go there because it could be a longer explanation. Rusty consistently holds up higher standards of integrity than some of the people that I've interacted with, most of the people actually, in Woodland Park. He elevates me. When I'm around him, I want to be authentic. I want to be my authentic self. And that's what he was explaining to you about what can he do to improve council. He's authentic, and he's also a very fast study. Rusty and I, and Michael and his wife Dawn, met earlier this year at the onset of not one but two of the most contentiously argued issues that I've seen in the city of Woodland Park. I've only been here 5 years, but in both of those situations, Rusty did just as he explained to you that he does. He tries to find viewpoints. He tries to understand all the viewpoints before he states a position. And when he does state a position, whether it's before a board of authority like the Board of Adjustments or to City Council, he's got his ducks in a row. So we, my husband and I, would like to see Rusty Neal appointed to the vacant seat on City Council as a new representative of the citizens of Woodland Park. I don't think his integrity can be questioned. He was appointed to the Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America. He has worked as an international political negotiator. Trust me, I believe City Council could use some negotiations. He's not encumbered by any conflicts of interest. He doesn't have any business concerns. He doesn't have political allies. He just simply hasn't been here long enough. So that's why I cast my support for Rusty for applying for this position. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break till 10 till 7. Okay, so let's be sure we get started on time. We're halfway through the process.
Oh. They take this into the job.
Because you're going to eat them all. Good, thanks. Thank you, Laura. Okay, next on my list is James Ray. Time flies when you're having fun.
With good people having fun.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Ray. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, great. Well, thanks for having me. So, I guess you guys have the application and resume. So, where do I start? Well, one of the reasons I'm doing this is that I love my community. So, here locally, lived here about just a little bit over 3 years. Moved out here. Background: 4 children. One of our daughters is married. Have an awesome grandson, so that's fun. And just, we really appreciate community. So we've been involved since our kids were really little, wherever we've lived. And so since we moved to Woodland Park, we just kind of jumped in. I sit on a district accountability board for District 2 here at the high school as a parent, kind of overseeing the decisions for the community from a school perspective. So enjoy that. It's a pretty hands-off type thing. We're just there. We go to the meetings and just kind of oversee that a little bit. But I've had the opportunity to serve on a lot of boards, both for nonprofits and for-profit, anywhere from church boards to national associations of insurance and financial advisors on boards like that as well, in multiple capacities. So, and ran several businesses over the years. So here, a business owner in the community, do insurance and financial services, both here in Teller County and in El Paso. Our offices are in the Springs, but I also do classes here. So I do a lot of educational events and teach on different subjects from a financial perspective. So when it comes to budgeting and finance, that's probably where I could help the most, I think. And so that's one of the reasons I've chosen to come here. I found out that there was a position available that needed somebody to serve, so I thought I could come serve with the rest of you. So
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to start with Councilman Sawyer.
Mr. Ray, thank you for being here. Did you expect 8 people to apply?
Yeah, I had no idea. No, not.
None of us did, actually.
No,
so.
which I think is great.
My question is going to be a 2-part question, so I'm going to ask both questions,
okay,
and then I'll let you go ahead and answer each one.
Okay.
Part of council's job is the future of this community. We look 5, 10, 20, 40 years out in some cases, and the bypass is a perfect example. Back in the late 70s, the community did vote for a bypass, and it did pass, but there were others in the community that decided that they didn't want it. So today we still do not have a bypass. So that was almost 30, 40 years ago. So my first question to you is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. So I'll give you a chance to think about that. The next question I have, or part of that, is we have a brand new aquatic center. You actually moved here right when it was being built. Mm-hmm. Memorial Park was remodeled, so did you have a chance to see the prior Memorial Park?
I have. Or the prior? No. It was under construction kind of at the same time.
Yeah, you'd be amazed at how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Was not to what it is now. Our wastewater treatment plant expansion, and then we have a new reservoir in our future that'll add a year of water if we have a drought.
Okay.
What's next?
Okay, great question. Okay, so what's next for Woodland Park? So just 2-part question. First part being, what is my vision for?
Describe your future.
My future
vision.
Yeah. Okay.
Where do you think we should go?
I think Woodland Park's kind of a unique community. So coming from, I would say, a relatively outside perspective, and then living here for a little over 3 years, trying to get the pulse, so kind of gathering the pulse of the community. Just seeing, I think community involvement's a really big thing just for those that actually live here. I do think it's important that people come through here because it's a beautiful place, and I think that it's a place that shouldn't be hidden from the world because it's so beautiful. So in my opinion, I think it's a place that should allow others to come and enjoy the beauty, but just with guidance of taking care of what we've been blessed with so much. So I would say I enjoy the park well. I live 2 blocks from it, so thank you for those that voted for that. But no, it's been a joy to be a part of that. I think one thing that could do more in the community is from a school perspective, just watching that, what could we see happen for the kids and for the parents. I noticed from a sporting, just might be a side note, but just from a sports perspective, we've lived in a couple different places where it was a big deal, and so you could see a town of 1,200 have 2,000 people at a sporting event. So I've noticed through some of those here in Woodland Park, that's not quite the case. If you went to a sporting event here, maybe not including special occasions though, so not, maybe excluding homecoming or something like that, but for the most part you don't see a lot of community involvement, and I haven't been able to put my thumb quite on why when it comes to that, because I'm so used to all the community being involved with that. So I would want to see in a vision a place that we could do things, and don't get me wrong, there are several things in the community that they're trying to do, but I would want to expand on that, maybe from a sporting perspective, because we could get more people involved in that. And so that would be one area. And then just kind of stand on the backs of those that have already put together so many cool community things as well, and just grow them, add them so they could become bigger. And then where do we go from here? Water is extremely important. I'm not an expert on water. Had the opportunity to visit the facilities here just actually this year, and to go check that out, which was really unique to see. I think everybody should go look at that. So it's really neat. I'm really thankful for the water, but I think it's really important to protect it as well. So just I think continued growth is important. Especially from a tax perspective, but in keeping the money coming in to keep the community nice and growing for our children and grandchildren.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Microphone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening again.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
You did put on your application managing traffic on Highway 24.
Yes, sir.
I would like to hear what you believe would be managing traffic on Highway 24. You're absolutely right. Woodland Park is a beautiful place, a beautiful community. And I would like to see the quality of life continue to grow instead of deteriorate through the complications that Highway 24 brings to Woodland Park. Can you enlighten me on that?
Okay. Yeah, so the question is what would I do differently about traffic flow for 24?
Yeah, you have it on your application.
Yeah, I
did. Your ideas?
Yeah, sure. So I put it on my application because the question was, what are one of the big concerns for Woodland Park that I see as an issue? And I see that as one of the biggest issues that I've noticed in the community. So to say I have the solution for it, I don't. But I am really wanting to collaborate with those that want to do the same thing, is make it a place that's going to be extremely safe, at the same time allowing the capacity for people to pass through here so they can enjoy it, so they can bring tax dollars. But of course we know many of those are just passing through. So I don't have the answer. I just recognize it as a topic that really needs to be taken care of. And so what I bring for that is just the opportunity of having unity with the rest of the council to be able to come up with the proper solution. So that's why I put it on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a difficult problem
Yes, sir.
to resolve.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that runs through our city, and it's something that we need to live with.
Yeah.
I was just curious, you had it on your application, if you had some insight into it or had studied it a little bit further. But I do appreciate your honest answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hillary?
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mr. Rea.
Good evening.
I'm going to ask the same question I've asked everyone, and that's, what do you believe the proper role of government is?
Great question. Okay, so for me, proper role of government is to take the, whether it be the Constitution, and do what it says. And so proper role of government is to define what that is. Excellent. And short answer, yeah. Thanks. You're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for applying and for your interest in serving
Thank you.
the citizens of our community. My question is, I'd like for you to just share with me your position and your thoughts on fiscal management, financial health and well-being, and what that looks like for you.
Okay.
Particularly as it relates to public funds.
Okay. Yeah, so as it relates to public funds, when it comes to being fiscal, I believe the least amount of debt, the better. And so for me, I would lean towards that. So obviously paying bills and paying them on time and having a reserve enough to cover those bills in case the tax flow dollars, which sales tax that comes in, that it can be taken care of. Of course, we can predict what the future is, and we can look at the past to do that, and we can get a timeline for that. Of course, we won't know exactly, but we can come fairly close. But I'm a big fan of building up, making sure we do have a good reserve. And I believe I think 3 months, if I could be wrong, you could correct me on that, but that's kind of like the target, from what I understand, is having about a 3 month, is that correct? Approximately? Okay.
Depends on who you ask.
Okay. Okay. So to my understanding, it's about a 3 month reserve there to.
Not a bad idea.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. So that's where I'm coming from. So I'm a fan of having the city run with being debt free. And so obviously I know there's certain things that have to be done to get to that point, but I would say part of the vision long term, if we could look out 20 years from now, we'd be operating with no debt and obviously fiscally. So
great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Val.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Rea.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
So I have some general questions here that are three quick yes/no questions.
Okay.
But they're more of an awareness question.
Okay.
So they're not really questions, but they're some issues that some of us on council have learned the hard way.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to make every applicant understand certain things that at least I've tried to learn. And so the first one is, are you aware that you will be issued a city email address? But if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations.
Yes, sir.
Number two, are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it is a genuine social gathering, and even then you may not discuss council-related topics that can be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance?
I do now, sir.
Yes, we
Yes.
A lot of us have learned that lesson.
Okay.
Are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks again for being here. Just two questions, fairly straightforward. First, if you do not, or even if you do gain this selection today, April 7th is the next date to select new council members. Do you intend on running in that election? A, and B, if you do get selected, or when you do get selected, how do you make this group better?
Okay. So the first question is yes. And how I make this group better, second question would be to collaborate, to understand, to be a problem solver. That's primarily what I do, is solve problems for folks. And I look at the future and I help them plan. So the way I see myself helping is looking at the future and being able to help put together plans that are going to help Woodland Park be a better place to live, better place to play, better place to raise a family, kids and grandkids. And so that's how I believe I can make it better.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right.
I have one person that would like to speak on Mr. Ray's behalf, and that's Brian Troxel.
Okay.
You can go ahead and have a seat.
All right.
Or go with Kip.
Okay, thank you.
But you can listen to Mr. Troxel first if you'd like.
Okay.
Good evening. As you said, I'm Brian Troxel. I pastor the Woodland Life Center, the Nazarene Church here in town. Been doing that for about 14 years. And I'd like to speak on Jim's behalf. He's not a parishioner, so I'm not speaking as his pastor, but more of a collaborator. What I've seen out of Jim the last couple of years is strong leadership, and he is a starter and a finisher. He's strong with follow-through, and a very good collaborator, which I think would be a great strength to this team. And I just believe that he brings a strong and fair voice. And would be a great representative of our community. So thank you for considering him for this role. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council, we had one letter that I think everybody saw a copy, but I'll read it into the record from Diane Allen. This is a reference for Mr. Ray. Jim Ray attended our training program at Choices in the Woodland Park office in 2016, and after successful completion, he became a dad mentor and met with a young couple who attended parenting classes at Choices. In March of 2017, Jim started a basketball ministry for ages 14 and up on Monday nights at the Woodland Life Center, where I am a member. It continues to be a well-attended outreach to our community with an average of 25 weekly participants. Through my interaction with Jim, I have found him to be a man of integrity. He is reliable, punctual, and generous with his time and talents. I would highly recommend Jim to fill the open council seat. Signed, Diane Allen. Thank you very much, sir. And we move on. I hope I pronounced this right. Carla Tokach. I'm sure she's going to correct me.
Sounded good to me, Mr. Mayor.
We're going to find out in a minute. Good evening, young lady.
Good evening.
I'm fairly sure I mispronounced your name, so if you'll start with your name, that would be awesome.
That is fine. Good evening. My name is Carla Tokash. So, not Tokich. Yeah, but Tokash. Yep. So, I'm originally from Texas, but I moved to Colorado Springs almost 2 years ago, and I lived in Fountain, and my husband and I relocated up to Woodland Park to get out of a subdivision about a year and a half ago. We both serve in the military. He works right on Fort Carson. He's a Green Beret, and hopefully he's going to retire and will make a wonderful life here in here in Woodland Park. I am a member of the 138th Space Control Squadron, which is located right on Peterson. So I'm in the Air National Guard, so it's not active duty, but I have a full-time job, so I won't have to move around like the active duty does. In that job, I am the non-commissioned officer in charge of our training. So once our candidates and our military members come back from basic training and their basic Space 100 course, I make sure that they stay qualified. I've never held a civil service position. However, my passion is in volunteering for my community, but I've done a lot more in the military. I've been the president of the Junior Enlisted Council in the state of Indiana. So what that does is represent the first 6 enlisted ranks for that Air National Guard. And I held that position for 2 years, but I sat on that council for over 6 years. And throughout that time, we got to help make changes in work schedules. So I worked on a 24-hour ops floor. But during that time, if I worked night shift, medical wasn't open or finance wasn't open. And so we solved some of those issues by providing people that would come in at a different time. So I'm used to solving problems, and I love solving problems and volunteering. My decision to interview for this council came from my passion of policy. I graduated from the University of Purdue, my degrees in political science with a focus in international relations and counterinsurgency. So at a young age I focused in international policy, but now that I've matured and now have time in my military career, I would like to focus on my local government. And throughout the conversations I've had with my neighbors that are policemen and teachers and firefighters in this community, I'd like to be a voice for them. So, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Noel, would you like to start, sir?
Yes. Carla, thank you for being here tonight. Did you expect 8 applicants?
I did not, no.
Yeah, so.
But you guys have a very hard job. Just from the little that I've spoke with them back there, they are experienced, knowledgeable, and really passionate. So
Agreed.
I do not want to be in your guys' seats.
Agreed. So I'm going to have 2 questions. I'm going to ask both questions, and then I'll let you answer both questions, whichever order you'd like to answer them. Our job on council is to prepare this community for the future, maybe 5, 10, 20 years out, in some cases 40 years out. My 40-year example is a bypass. I think late 70s, the community actually voted for a bypass. And it was passed, but we don't have a bypass. So that's when I talk about planning 40 years out. You have to have a good vision, and you got to see the trends. So my first question to you is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. Okay. Well, now let me ask the second question, and then you can pick which one you want to do first. So we just got a new aquatic center. It's only 3 years old. You've only been here a year, so you weren't part of that, the excitement when we built it. We have a new memorial park. It's been remodeled in the last 3 years also. Wastewater treatment plant has expanded to give us more population growth. We have a new reservoir that's going to be built here in the next few years that allow us to have water for the next year if we have a drought, or have water for a year. What's next?
So I'd like to answer the second question first.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, what's next, just by talking through with members of the community and small business people, I love the feel of Woodland Park. I grew up in a small town, and I love the sense of community and just how every neighborhood feels so connected to me with one another. But one thing that I think I've had more conversations with my neighbors are the overturn of small businesses. So something that would not only bring small businesses, but keep them alive here in Woodland Park, I think would be a great next step for Woodland Park.
Great.
Yep.
Vision. Future vision of Woodland Park.
My future vision.
Get your crystal ball out. What do you see?
Yes. My future vision for Woodland Park would just be that when I tell people that I live in Woodland Park and I work right on Peterson, they're like, oh my goodness, that's so far away. And my first response is like, I actually get to work a lot quicker than people that are on the north side of town. So I would think for people in Colorado Springs to not just think of us as something that's far away and a way to get to the mountains to go skiing or snowboarding, but this community that they want to go visit with all these little shops. I've seen it in towns in Texas, in Lakey, Texas, or Fredericksburg, that have this sense of community, and it's just this one strip, and everyone loves being on it. I think we already have a safe road down that strip because I see plenty of people walking, but I want our vision to be like, you want to come to Woodland Park because it is so amazing because of our shops, our restaurants, our community, and all the people in it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Paul.
Good evening, Miss Carla.
Good evening.
So nice to see you. I love that smile. And thank you for your service, you and your husband. I deeply appreciate it. I also like Purdue. Some of my best engineers came out of Purdue. It's a great school. You have a good education.
Thank you.
You also have high expectations of yourself. You want to go for Congress?
Yes, I do.
I wish you the best.
Thank you.
You put down deer management, population growth, and housing.
Yes.
3 interesting areas. There are a lot of collisions. I'm going to give you a question on transportation. Transportation is very difficult up here. I would like to see our military people and our civilians and population, tourists and all, be able to come through this town safely and get through it reasonably in a reasonable amount of time. So Highway 24 is a very difficult problem for us. It runs straight through our town. It affects our town in many ways. It could be good for our economic development if we could learn how to capture the traffic coming through, which would prefer to go around. But that's out of the picture right now. Deer management, well, I would like to know what your interest is in deer management, but transportation, these deer, they like the cars up here. They like them so much, they run right in front of them.
They do.
Bada boom, bada bing, they're gone. So, people coming, the population growth, they're coming here, we're getting bigger, and it's going to continue. Do you have any ideas or any suggestions for our transportation, keeping our citizens safe, walkability, getting back and forth to work, quality of life? Anything in that area?
So,
and it's okay. I mean, this is a very difficult question.
It is a very difficult question.
We have been struggling with this for years and years, as you very well heard from Mr. Sawyer. So I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just trying to ask a question.
I think I read in the newspaper, because my mom came, like, when we first moved here, and that was one of the things that she loved, was like all of the deer. And then there was a new law saying, hey, you can't feed the deer anymore, because on top of that, they're coming into the town and there's just a lot of them. And then on top of that, they're bringing other predators as well. So I think that is a really good first step. Unfortunately, where I'm from, I haven't had those kind of issues. So I'm not sure. I would have to probably do a little bit more research before I would try and propose a solution when it came to the deer and keeping our city safe. I do struggle with the bypass, or just because in the summertime coming up and down the mountain on a Friday or a Sunday, it can be a struggle. But I do know that when I go down to the Ute during those weekends, it's completely full. So I'm torn for one, safety and trying to get home in less than an hour from Colorado Springs, but then at the same time, you want our businesses to flourish here. And I'd probably speak with those people and look at the costs during those times, especially during the summer, when we have a lot of people coming through Woodland Park. So unfortunately, I don't have that answer right now.
And that's perfectly fine.
Somebody else.
Neither do we.
Hillary?
Good evening, Ms. Tokash.
Good evening.
Since you're at Peterson, are you familiar with where the 302nd is?
I am. I've just never been over there before.
My husband is a major there. He flies the C-130s.
Oh, wonderful.
So I know where you are, so we're down there. So I've asked everyone the same question. I'm going to ask it to you. But before I ask that question, on your application, you mentioned the deer management, population growth, and housing. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit about what you meant with the housing.
So as we know, Colorado Springs is growing, and it's growing very quickly. And luckily, my husband and I got here about 1.5 years ago, and we were very fortunate to find a home that was within reason in our price range kind of thing. But I do know that some of my at least single friends that would love to be up here in Woodland Park can afford to be up here. And then on top of that, there's only so much growth. We're surrounded by, 1 million acres of national forest, give or take. So I would love to increase our community, but unfortunately I don't see where we can have that much of growth to make a difference, because there's plenty of my friends that would love to be up here, especially our military members that feel that sense of community and want that, but they just can't be up here, unfortunately. And I think the price range and the cost of living as well, just from what I saw from last year to this year, has drastically increased, not only in Woodland Park, but also Divide, where that's where I originally wanted to live, but it was too far for my husband. And we went from being able to afford a home in Divide to looking at it, and this year I'm like, we can't afford new builds out there, and most people in a single household income cannot afford that as well. So trying to figure out ways that we could make Woodland Park more affordable, I think, for people down in Colorado Springs that want to be up here, to me is where I kind of brought where I thought some of those issues were.
Okay. And then my other question was, what do you think the proper role of government is?
Well, I think the proper role of government is to be a representative for everybody that's sitting in front of us. What that means is fully listening to those people. We have 3 branches of government, but when it comes to our local government, I think we have more of an opportunity to make our communities better by sitting on these boards and holding ourselves accountable when it comes to our community. So that's what I feel like our local government should be doing, is holding what we value here in Woodland Park specifically accountable for what our community wants. Thank you.
Kelly.
Good evening. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your application and wanting to serve.
Thank you.
I just would like to explore your thoughts and your position, your platform as it relates to fiscal management and fiscal responsibility, particularly when it involves public funds. Does that make sense? Do you understand my question?
Can you just repeat it one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm just curious as to where you come from and what your thoughts are surrounding financial management and fiscal policy with regards to public funds.
Yep. So I'm first generation American. My mom came from Mexico and she had nothing. So I grew up as a lower middle class, and we went through some hard times financially. So I think that instilled me to be frugal, but also put my money where it needed to be, not where I wanted it to be. So when I think of a community's financial stability, I think that's probably the most important part, and we have to think about where is this money going to go, and how long is this going to last, and what is it going to cost us in 10 years, in 20 years, and in 30 years. So I think we have the responsibility to respect not only our financial plan that we have now, but the one that we have for the future as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for applying and coming forward. We appreciate it. I have 3 easy, well, they're not easy, but 3 quick yes and no questions. And they're more in the nature of information that a lot of us had to learn up here, at least I had to learn, painfully sometimes. But so I'm going to ask the 3 questions. They're yes/no questions.
Okay.
And so it's informative more than it's a real test. Okay. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may, and that goes for your military, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations?
I did not know that.
Are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it is a genuine social gathering, and even then you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
I am.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks again for being here. More importantly, thanks for your service. It's very, very much appreciated. 2 questions, fairly simple. A, if you're selected or if you're not selected, there will be openings on council on the April 7th election. Do you fully intend to at least consider running for a council position at that time? A, and B, you've worked with a lot of people. We have worked together for a number of years, some of us more than others, with our ups and downs. How do you make this group better? How do you generally make groups better?
So in my experience, we make a group better by not agreeing with each other, which is okay, and also bringing in people that might be a little bit more knowledgeable in whatever you're talking about or whatever issue you're trying to bring up. So if it's something with small businesses, get them together. Probably listening as well. We say that we listen, but sometimes we only listen to what we want to hear. So I think, I would like to think that I bring a calmness to the organizations, but also a fire and a passion when it comes to what I believe in. So I will disagree with you, and that'll be okay, but I understand that I probably don't have as much experience as some of you, and will also listen to you as well.
Sense for the first question?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you have an answer to the first question?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Whether you get selected or not, if you get selected, this is a 4-month term. April 7th, there will be an election. Are you considering running, whether you get this election or not in April?
I will definitely try to run. I'm definitely considering it if I don't get this position as well.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. You made a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to Corey Young. We're on the Wise.
It's been a long time since I've done interviews.
Do well.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. Mr. Young, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
The floor is yours.
My name is Corey Young. I'm born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska. I was a military brat, Elmendorf Air Force Base, so I was an Air Force kid. Growing up in Alaska, I was always interested, you can call me kind of a political nerd, in the politics there, just at a local level. I can remember meeting Anchorage Assembly members, even state members. Alaska is a very personal place like Woodland Park, and so some of the things that we saw there just took an active role in that. I remember running for vice president of my elementary school back in 5th grade, and it was a great experience, and so I decided to run again for president of 6th grade. I lost to a girl, but it was still a great experience, and it never stopped me. I ended up going to school for journalism, and I worked as a reporter in Fairbanks, Alaska, and Anchorage, Alaska. I worked for the NBC and CBS affiliates. Before I moved here to Woodland Park, I actually got a call from the governor at the time, Governor Bill Walker. He's not the current governor. There's been an election in the past year, but ended up working as his press secretary, and then also for the Department of Corrections under him as the spokesperson, dealing with a lot of things with the media. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum, from being the media person to working, seeing it in the government, working with other lawmakers across the aisle, and also with communications. One of the things I did learn about that is this relationships and communication, that's key, and also with your constituents. I can remember times, especially in corrections, when there was decisions made, laws passed, and there was areas of town, or not just in the state, that they didn't understand what was going on, and that was because of a lack of communication. So I do know that's something that's very crucial. Reason why I'm here in Woodland Park, I moved here 2.5 years ago to go to Charis Bible College. I'm in the last year of the program, but again, I've follow you guys pretty extensively, just as a reporter and just as a former reporter, but as a somebody who just likes politics. And one thing I've understood by covering the stories in the past is that local government's where it's at. It's a selfless position. I always think of a quote by Ronald Reagan where he said, "The most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help.'" And I know that scares people, but it's true. Local government, and a lot of people always talk about who the president is or even the governor, but on local government, it's where you can make real impacts in your backyard with your neighbors, with your family, and your friends. It's grassroots efforts. I believe in a place where I can live, work, and play. I see Woodland Park as that. I love the aquatic center. I have kids who go here in the schools here. I love the dog park. I love Memorial Park. I'm someone who loves the schools. I've coached in the past football and basketball. I haven't been able to do that here, but in terms of just using your track in the back of the school, like in the mornings, that's an amenity that I think is awesome and things that people will take advantage of. I work actually in public relations. That's the job I do, and I've had the pleasure of working with the Woodland Park Police Department, helping them with a recruitment video. And one of the things I think it should be required by anybody is to do a ride-along in a community. I did it before when I was a reporter, but here, just seeing the impact that the officers do, the things that they have to deal with, especially with the young people, it's just something that matters to my heart. I think it's awesome just to see the stuff that they have to deal with on a daily basis, and then helping them make that recruitment video, seeing the things and the challenges they're facing, and some also their successes that they're having too, which is awesome. Also, in my experience, I've also worked with the Woodland Park, our partner with the Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce, and also in local businesses in my job in PR, and places like Circle H Smokehouse, dealing with them, the Bad Rock Automotive. They talk a lot about the community and what matters to them, and my dentist here, Dr. Jonathan Baines. As I'm sitting in the chair, I can't really talk because he's working on my teeth, but just some of the things that he says to me about commercial taxes and the things that matters to him with businesses. And as somebody who's been in this town, I think he said like 10 years. And so those are some of my experiences. This is my home, and I want it to be the best city. I know you could talk a lot about it's the mountain, or the mountain city above the clouds, and it's a place I believe could be the best place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bill, would you like to start?
Yes, Mr. Young, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Did you expect 8 candidates?
I wasn't really quite sure, to be honest, but I mean, in my past experience, I've seen everything from like 2 people to like 15 or 20. So
yeah, we did not expect 8, and so
it's awesome.
It is awesome, and it shows a true commitment to our community. The ride-along thing, that's pretty impressive. I'm glad. I've been here on council for 6 years, and I haven't done it yet. I don't want to know the horror stories. I have 2 questions. I'm going to go ahead and give you both questions and then let you answer which one you want first. As you know, and you're kind of a person that follows community government, you know it's our job to plan for the future, 5, 10, 20, 40 years out. The reason I bring up the word 40 is because the talk of the town is a bypass. Well, in the late 70s, we actually voted on a bypass, and it passed, but we don't have a bypass. And there were some people in the community that decided they didn't want it, so they squashed it. But that's 40 years ago. So 40 years from now, where are we going to be? Well, so my question for you, the first question is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. The second part of this question is, we have a brand new aquatic center. It's only 3 years old. You've only been here, I thought, I saw a little over a year.
2 years, 2 plus years.
Okay. Memorial Park remodel, that's only 3 years old. We have a wastewater plant expansion. We've got a new reservoir on the way, which will, for population growth, and also for, if we have a drought, we have a year's supply. Hopefully, if not everybody's watering their lawns. One thing I haven't said to the community, we got a dog park, which you mentioned. That's very new. What's next?
One of the things I think is important is in terms of recruitment and retention. I know that's one of the things that you guys mentioned there, but I just have seen this, like, especially in Alaska, in terms of recruiting. It's hard to recruit people to do certain jobs and special skill sets, especially in the public sector, government sector, because you're competing against private enterprise. But I feel like that's something that would improve the Woodland Park community. There's different various ways to do it. It doesn't always include money. that is a factor. But you want people to feel like this is a place where they can grow, where they can raise a family, where they can retire, where they can, where their children can grow and their children's children. So I think that's an important thing. Infrastructure is key. Roads, that's something I think that we could do on. The bypass issue is definitely interesting. I've heard different takes on that issue. I don't know if you want to take away from the beauty of coming through Woodland Park. I know, especially in the summer on Friday afternoons or Sunday mornings when people are coming in and out, I know of plenty of people, friends, or just people I've met in the Springs that have come up here to camp at Rampart Range or places like that. And so I don't want to take away from that. So I think maybe even promoting our place. I talked about a place where you can live, work, and play. That play part means where people can come up here if you're a visitor, or even if you're a resident, improving on that. In terms of our parks, I think that's important. That's key. I've seen that in different communities that I've been in terms of how improving that a place where you can walk your dog, or you can run on trails, where you can ride bikes. If you want to do things like snowshoeing or some of the things that you see there, I think those are ways to expand. I just think on building those things, and also too ways to promote where we live here in Woodland Park. It's a beautiful place. It provides an escape that's different from like the Springs, as the busyness or the craziness that goes on there. Those are the three things that I would work on, or I see as a future thing.
Right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Paul. Good evening, Mr. Young.
How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thank you for applying. I truly enjoy your enthusiasm and your vision for Woodland Park. It's very interesting. My question is, I've been following this question through, and you mentioned it, transportation, Highway 24, the logistics of getting back and forth on it. How can we capture businesses to spur economic development? How can we bring businesses into the community? It could be a multi-pronged question. You can take it wherever you want. I'm not asking it to trip you up or anything else like that. I would just like to hear some of your insights or how we might be able to attract and keep businesses here, people to visit us, and things of that nature.
I think one thing to expand maybe some of the options for lodging. I think that's key. I've just seen this in, like, I'll just use Anchorage as an example. Improving on maybe in some of the ways that we host things up here, like conventions or recruiting. There's definitely ways to recruit. It doesn't even have to be something super huge. There's annual medical places that come up and have meetings where they want to discuss. This would be a great retreat place. I had the awesome experience of I went to Hong Kong a year and a half ago, and in Hong Kong we went to an island called Qingqiao. Hong Kong was like a super huge place if you've ever seen anything. Like, it's like New York City and Las Vegas on steroids pretty much. But Qingqiao was a quiet place, and I actually thought in my mind this would be a great place to have a retreat. Like, I would actually bring people here in future to like have a chance to dialogue or to go over ideas, whether we're on business or not. I feel like Woodland Park offers that same type of environment of peace where you could bring people up here, but you need the space to do it, and you have to be able to provide lodging. I know that's one of the things that I've seen here that could bring more people and to come visit. In terms of businesses, that's more networking. In terms of talking with a fellow business and seeing their needs and seeing how we could provide some of those needs. There's definitely space. I mean, it's proof here that businesses do want to come here. They see the economic value because it goes beyond just Woodland Park. But in terms of like the Natural Pantry that came up here, Walmart, some of the businesses, the local businesses and things that are coming up this way. You guys have a variety of businesses we have up here, and so I just think there's ways to improve on that to encourage that, or recruit them to come here. Thank you, sir.
Hillary.
Good evening, Mr. Young.
Hello.
I have a random connection to Alaska. I was born late to my parents, and as Alaska was becoming a state, my dad was the engineer that designed and built all the roads in Alaska.
Alaska Highway.
So, yeah. So I'm going to ask the same question of you that I've asked of everyone else, and I already like who you quoted. So, but what do you think the proper role of government is?
I believe in a government that's held accountable, first of all, because we're a steward to the citizens that we represent of Woodland Park, the 7,500 residents that are here. I believe in a government where we don't, it's limited, in terms of we're not here to, we're here to encourage growth, whether it be economically, regulations that encourage people to grow here. I don't believe in a government that should be forceful and be involved in everybody's day-to-day lives. We should be a government that provides safety through our police forces, protection, and also in terms of using the finances that we're given in a responsible way. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome, and thank you so much for applying.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would just be interested in hearing your perspective and your thoughts. You've kind of hinted at it, but on financial management, fiscal policy, and what your foundation is, what your thoughts are with regards to the management of public funds.
So again, I'm going to repeat that I feel like we're a steward. These aren't our funds. These are our citizens' tax dollars. And we need to be responsible. That means looking through the budget and every single faction, not just doing the status quo of what's happening. There might be ways to encourage growth economically through certain things, but also looking at everything from our youth to our older population. You know, every single citizen's concern should be taken in hand, but in terms of doing it responsibly, in terms of what benefit we'll see from this that will impact the entire community, I believe in that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Young, for applying and stepping forward. I have three yes or no questions. They aren't really testing you at all. They're more in background. Some of us have learned some hard lessons up here. Maybe just me, but these are interesting aspects that a lot of us don't know when we come into this job. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and there's no right answer. It's just that you may not be aware of some situations. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations?
Yes.
Are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it is a genuine social gathering? And even then, you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance.
Yes, I'm aware.
Are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thanks again for being here and representing us. You've got a great way, I think, about you and a great demeanor that we all appreciate. Two questions, fairly simple. First and foremost, if you're sitting on this council with us, how do you make us better? And secondly, if you're selected, you'll have about a 4-month term, and you will have to rerun if you want to continue in April. And whether you are selected or not, we're interested in what your intentions are for the April election, if you know what they are at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing about how to make everybody better, I think the first thing is, I talked about communication, is listening. And learning to listen to everybody's viewpoint and coming to a common ground. I feel like, for the most part, I could be wrong, but everybody wants a safe community. They want a safe Woodland Park. They want a Woodland Park that's thriving, a Woodland Park that is growing in terms of people adding value to this community, a place where people can just have fun, enjoy living here. And so coming to that common ground and figuring out those issues in terms of the different things. I know you may deal with different things with land issues or property issues or even finances, but I think listening to everybody's viewpoint before deciding, I think, is key. That's how you make everybody better. And then when it comes to 4 months from now, I don't have a plan, I'll be honest with you. I'm a hard worker and I just want to learn. I haven't thought about it that far. I saw this as an opportunity to be involved in local government. I never thought I'd actually be on this side, to be honest. I've covered it a lot, but I do believe this is something that interests me, and if I'm going to say that, I need to actually do it, so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Well, with your history in the 5th and 6th grade, it should be obvious.
That's true.
Why you should be here. So.
Oh, that's true.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on our last applicant, and his name is Robert Zuluaga, if I pronounced that correct.
You did.
I did.
Good job. You've done well tonight.
Not many Smiths here tonight.
Or cars.
Cars.
Or leavings.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Just give us your name, and the floor is yours.
Well, hi. My name is Robert Zuluaga, and with last name like Z, I am very familiar with coming up last. Every report card, except for Father Heffernan. What would you like to know? What's your process? And
Well, if you'd like to spend a couple of minutes and, tell us a little bit about yourself, promote yourself a little bit. We've got some questions lined up for you, so you know what? The floor is yours. Like I said, it's all up to you. Pretty open process.
okay. Well, let's start with the heart. I'm one of 9 kids, and I was raised when I was young in Washington State. And one of the things that really impacted me the most was we used to have the parade. So we'd have the daffodils, we'd have the clowns, they'd be scooping the horse poop. And when I came to Woodland Park a couple of years ago, we had the parade, the Christmas parade. And what really touched me as just in terms of how life is, was when I would see these floats. Everybody had their different float coming down, and the sheriff posses would fill the barrels with wood. I mean, what city allows fires in the middle of the street, right, in barrels? You just don't see that, right? And so they're either doing the pledge or the Star Spangled Banner, and there's 3 kids in the middle of the road in the island, in the median. And the little boy, he's messing around, and his sister knocks him and says, "You put your hand on your heart. You do the Pledge of Allegiance." I tell you what, where I see our country today, that warmed my heart. That warmed my heart more than I can say, because it tells me that the culture that we have is being passed down to the next generation, and it stirs my memory of what I know and hope America to continue to be. So let's start with that.
Great. We'll start with questions. And Noel?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Did you expect 8 candidates?
I actually expected 9, so.
Oh. Do we know who the
Somebody had told me there was 9, so.
We did not expect 8. So this is probably the first time in a long time, or ever, that we've had this many. So you're part of an elite group. So I'm going to have 2 questions. I'm going to go ahead and read off the questions first, and you can answer which one you'd like in any order. As you know, of a council member, our job is to plan 5, 10, 15, maybe even 40 years out to make sure our community continues to be the great community that you just described. And I think we're on our way right now. Back in the 70s, this community wanted a bypass, so they voted on it, and the vote was successful, and they were going to get a bypass, and then they decided not to. So that's why I bring 40 years out, because we are truly looking at 40 years. Our DDA is looking at 12 years. I mean, so my first question to you is, describe your future vision of Woodland Park. My second question goes to some of the stuff we have around, some of the great things we have here around town. We have an aquatic center. It's only 3 years old. The Memorial Park we just remodeled. If you haven't been here long enough and you knew the old one compared to the new one's won awards. I mean, it's so amazing. Our wastewater treatment plant expanded for growth. We also have a reservoir that's going to be built hopefully soon to accommodate a year water if we have a drought. What's next? Oh, wait. Dog park. We got a dog park.
Yes,
we got to remember that one. Sorry. What's next?
Well, I just want to say, my dog Lily thanks you. That is awesome. I am so glad you started out with that question. Because when I saw the strategic plan for Woodland Park was 3 years, I went, what? That really surprised me. It surprised me. I come from Arizona. I was in real estate and construction in Arizona, and I've seen growth. There was less than 1 million people in Phoenix when I arrived. There's now, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 million. It just totally, it's huge. We have in my observation, we have 3 issues. The first is they're working on I-25. I-25 is being expanded, and as that corridor opens and the construction work's done, we're going to see the traffic from Denver come down to Colorado Springs and create a very rapid growth, in my opinion, in Colorado Springs. That, in turn, is going to bleed up the mountain in a lot of ways. And with traffic being easy going from Denver to Colorado Springs up the mountain, our summer traffic is going to get even more intense than it already is. So I see that's an area that you talk about the bypass. I think that's like, it brings a question of that community that I expressed to start with. What's it going to take to develop the identity of that when you have such a huge amount of traffic that is impersonal, that isn't interested in Woodland Park as a destination, and is disrupting what the community, how it develops and builds. So I see that the need for Woodland Park to articulate what we are, independent of the growth that's going to rapidly engulf us, is a really important part of a 10-year, 15-year, as you say, 40-year plan for roads.
Yeah.
I get that. So
Vision.
that's what?
Vision. What's your vision? What do you
So my
see?
vision, so now this is the second part of that. The second part of that is I had the opportunity and have had the opportunity to use the water park. And I'm a little older, but I got to tell you, if you haven't been on that slide, it is so worth doing. It really is very thrilling. So we have some community development, which I hear both sides of the fiscal situation with that, and the fact that it's costing us $350,000 a year in the red. Those are issues that are a concern, a real concern. And yet, if we develop that plan for the city well, that gets absorbed in a positive way. And so I see, that's what I see. I got one other point, but I'll come back to that one if I can. Yeah. The third thing I see is we see ourselves as a mountain community. But I came here to pursue an education with Charis Bible College in practical government. For 5 years, Charis has opened its doors, developed over $100 million worth of development debt-free on the land that they have. And it's like Charis Bible College and Woodland Park and Andrew Wommack Ministries now, because they moved up from the Springs, are the future of this area. It's not going to go away. So I know there's the tensions of 501c3, don't pay tax, that's a burden on social services. I get that. But there's another aspect, and it's not just the 501c3 of Charis and Andrew Wommack Ministries. Every church has got the same issue. So we don't get tax revenues from the Catholic Church, from the Baptists, the Protestants. So from that standpoint, that's an opportunity that I see. Because government's instituted to execute what God wants for his purposes. And the government gets to do like we do with this guy who allegedly murdered his wife. That's the government's job, to handle that type of gravity. But if you're following what the tenets and the laws are of nature, and nature's God, then you are blessed. You are blessed. So to have so much 501c3, government says, no, you can't tax that. That's got to be a plus. Because from what I've read, and although I have come from a Christian perspective, I have studied and practiced most world religions. So it's not like I'm unfamiliar with what they are. And so I say for Woodland Park, for the 10, 15-year plan, I'd love to see discussions. I'd love to see getting together around the same table and saying, well, what's your vision? What do you see? What's your traffic needs? What's housing needs? The statistics of housing, 5 years ago, there was a house would be on the market statistically for, I think the stats are like 171 days, and then it would sell for less than what the asking price was. Well, 5 years forward, where houses are on the market for hours, and they sell for, tens of thousands of dollars more than the actual price. Right. So that's what's happening now. I come out of Phoenix. I came out of 2007, 2008, 2009 in Phoenix. I own multiple properties. I bled for 10 years. It's very painful. So the 32% increase in property values that we've experienced in the last 2 years is not going to last. It isn't. So it's great now. It's great if you've got a piece of property and it's, your equity is like you're going great. But we're going to see a time when that shifts. So is the structure and the infrastructure and the planning of the city fathers sound enough to weather when that hits? It's a very valid question. So now let's look again at the partnership that I see. And I'm not speaking for Charis Bible College, just want to clarify, but I see stuff. So I'm coming unafraid to talk into the tension of that alliance, okay? And you have the recent statistics are you have 1,000 students at Charis more or less right now. There's 200 who had enrolled but didn't show up. One of those reasons is from the standpoint of housing, huge housing problem. So, all right, so we have a housing problem. Is there a way that the two can meet each other in a healthy way? Win for Woodland Park, win for the college. I'm asking the question. I don't know the answers yet, but I'm asking the questions. What's it going to take for these to happen, right? I've got some more thoughts in that regard, but
I think you've covered it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Paul?
Good evening, Mr. Zuluaga.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. You know me.
Yes, sir.
I know you.
Yes, sir.
I even asked you early on, hey, there's an empty seat. Why don't you consider running for it? Full disclosure I'm giving so that my fellow council and city understand our relationship. You showed up at one of my primaries and we started a relationship going back almost 4 years ago. I am also a mentor to you on the government plan at Charis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, clarifying that relationship, I see that you put down the expansion of I-25 as a project completed at Colorado Springs Overflow, as you just spoke about, the wash coming up with the Colorado being a sweet spot and people wanting to live here. We are a mountain community. We are growing. My question is about transportation. Possibly some of this washed over through our relationships through the years. I don't know. but I haven't coached you in anything, I don't believe. So, my question to you is, now that all that's clear, what do you see, or how can you envision captioning the traffic off of I-25 to promote off of I-25, off of 24 out here? Forget about I-25. That's already done. That's bringing the problems up here. And the expansion, population growth. You also mentioned housing and everything else, and Karis, which is a big contributor to traffic and everything else. Do you see anything in the future to help resolve the traffic problem, to make it easier to improve the quality of life, safety, health, and well-being of our travelers on the highway, our citizens who are walking around, people who are visiting, unfamiliar with our area, making it easier for them to get around? Can you give me an idea, or what your ideas may be towards this particular situation? And it's okay, whatever you give as an answer. I'm not trying to trick you or jump you up, okay?
Sure. Well, I would go, I lived in Arizona for about 24 years, and I would go up to Flagstaff. Flagstaff's on the way to the ski resorts. It was just a great little college town. And when I first started going up, you had to drive through town to go to your destination when you're on the other side of town, up to the ski slopes or off to Colorado. And it was a nightmare. It was like, Flagstaff is an awesome little town, but when it was caught all the traffic in the middle of it, your thought was, I got to get out of here. That's your experience of it. Fast forward to now. Now there is a bypass freeway from Flagstaff. And when you choose to go into Flagstaff, you can enjoy the culture of Flagstaff. So I would use that as a parallel to what I see in Woodland Park. We have a lot of people who come through Woodland Park because they have to come through Woodland Park. And, you know, there's some statistics about how many of the cars come through that are foreigners actually stop and spend money here. So the question is, are you going to have more people stopping by choice to come and enjoy the culture we develop as a community? Or do you have, a bit like your house and your hallway and your living room, people walking down your hallway and the house and your living room all day and all night? So I just look at it from a standpoint of, to develop the identity for our community we need to look at the fact that, how do we stay as a community and not something that's a pass-through for people? I've watched it in another city, and I've seen how it's been very advantageous and very good for the culture, because people come in there, and the events you have, people want to be there for them, and you don't have the contesting of when I say contesting of purposes. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, going back to the college, there's a need to address the college traffic flow. There's also a need to address traffic on 67. So we have some traffic issues in several areas, and back to the 40-year plan, and they need to get implemented sooner rather than later, and then use that as a stepping stone of, okay, now what's our identity? Where are we at? And I saw the strategic plan. I guess it's a rough draft, because a lot of it says adopt this, adopt that. I don't know if that means something that's being adopted that's already been discussed, or if it's somebody else's idea that's going to be adopted. So I'm not clear particularly on what that looks like, but I think a strategic plan, back to a strategic plan, needs to be 10 years at least.
Hillary.
Good evening, Mr. Zulaga.
Hi.
I know we know each other in passing, but not quite as well as you and Paul, apparently.
Well, I remember I was at the party for your election. So,
yes. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked everyone, and that is, what do you think the proper role of government is?
Very good. Great question. The proper role of government is to do, number one, to uphold the Constitution of the United States, which is to uphold a Republican form of government. Number two is to uphold the Constitution of Colorado, which guarantees, number one, a Republican form of government. And a Republican form of government is a representation. So government should be elected officials, do the work of the people. The people have said, yes, we like you, Hillary, we want you to represent our interests. And government should stay within the boundaries of government. Government shouldn't go into the boundaries of family, shouldn't go into the boundaries of church. Government should stay to the specific delineated functions that our founders laid out for them. We've progressed a lot, sadly, in the last 100 years. I would say it's not upholding those principles as it should. I'm in favor of upholding the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and all the developments we've had since then, and to have government do what government should do it well, and step aside from areas which we should encourage the family and the church to do.
Kelly.
Good evening. Thank you for coming, and thank you for applying.
Hi, Kelly.
I don't think we know each other. I've seen you around. I think we've met, but I don't know you. I know of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I know that you do real estate, and I was at your the celebration for your election as well.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would just like to understand your platform, your position on financial management and fiscal policy as it relates to public funds. What are your thoughts? What are your positions? Please.
Okay. Well, I'll speak from the experience I have. I worked for a private fiduciary for 5 years as a property manager. And so we were very involved in managing the estates of individuals, both living and deceased, trusts, as well as in the capacity of both guardian and conservator. So I'm very familiar with the fiduciary responsibility and accountability to not only the courts, but to the family, to the estate in general. Having said that, in a public capacity, it is, going back to Hillary's question about what is government, there is a very serious responsibility to administer the funds of the community well. There's a lot of good ideas that we think, yeah, great, government should get involved in that. Back to principle one, what is a Republican form of government? What are the actual areas that a government should get involved in? And it's popular in our culture today to have more government giving more benefits, doing more things for people, getting involved in more areas of our personal life. I don't think that's wise. I think what government needs to focus on is a fiduciary responsibility to manage the funds that come from the people to do the people's business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Val? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Zuluaga, we've met, but I guess everybody's qualifying everything here. I have 3 yes and no questions, but they're not tricky. Some of us, mostly maybe me, have learned some hard lessons up here as council people that we don't necessarily know when we apply for these jobs or we petition to be elected by the citizens. And so these are interesting things that some people know and some people don't. There's no perfect answer, but I want you to be aware of these things. Are you aware that you will be issued a city email address, but if you use any private email addresses, including business emails, you may have to give private emails to any requesting public if they contain any public business related to your council duties or deliberations. That's number one.
Do you want me to answer them as you go? Or?
Well, I don't care. Whatever, sure.
So,
yes.
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. I wasn't either. Are you aware that you may not meet with any more than one other council person at a time unless it is a genuine social gathering And even then, you may not discuss council-related topics that could be considered deliberation, which is only proper at a public meeting that is advertised in advance.
I am not aware of that either.
Yep. A lot of us weren't. So these are things that they don't put them on the application, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of these when they went into this process. Are you
Can I make a comment on that as well?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm a very straightforward guy. I will listen to all sides, gather the facts, weigh it up in my conscience, and I make it a practice to not backbite, to talk outside. You tell me you have something in confidence, it ain't going to come out of my mouth. So I can see the wisdom in that sort of policy in the government. I can see that because, it can create a whole lot more havoc than necessary. So I understand it, and I didn't know it, but thank you.
Well, so we have open meetings laws, and we're supposed to do our deliberations and our knowledge of our topics here in public, wherever public happens to be. It could be not upstairs, it could be all kinds of places. And so we have to be cautious about what we do in private that certainly has to make it to the public sector. My third question is, are you prepared to spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week in council-related duties, activities, and due diligence in higher priority than your work obligations?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Last questions for you, sir. Briefly, as a member of this council or any group, I'm interested in how you can make us better, number one. And number two, whether you're selected tonight or not, if you're selected tonight, you'll have about a 4-month term, and will be obligated to rerun if you want to continue on council. And if you're not, what are your intentions for the April 7th election? So those are my 2 questions.
So I'm going to answer your first one with a story, or just a
quick story.
It's a quick story. Yeah. So I used to live in behind the where the park is, where you do baseball. So I'm walking down there, getting my exercise for the day, and I see the mayor coaching baseball. I'm going, wow, there's an investment there in the relationships in the community that you don't see in a bigger city. And I was impacted by that. You didn't see me. I was sitting up in the bleachers. But I was impressed with the engagement in your personal one. I don't know, you get paid for it. I don't know whatever your benefits are on that. I have no idea, right? But I was impressed by that. What I see is, whether you choose me here this evening, I have the opportunity to engage in relationship with each of you and to get to know you as a person, to get to know what you're passionate about. I hope to develop a trust in our relationship so that we have the confidence to share what's really on our heart. I don't like playing games. I'm not. If you're looking for somebody who's going to play games, I'm not that guy. I want authentic relationships, and by being authentic, it brings out the best in both of us. And I think so what I bring is you can count on the fact that I'm interested in the success of my community. I'm interested in sharing the passion I have for my country, and I'm interested in bringing that to the betterment of the people of Woodland Park. So that's why what I carry, I hope to be contagious to others. And then I see, as we let go of the barriers of pretense, of agendas, and we relate, what comes out is the best in the other person. And so I just lived my life that way, love it, and some people you get on with, some people you don't. But in the divisiveness that we have in our culture today, it's like if you just, I used to go hiking with a friend of mine, totally different side of the aisle, but we would share, and I'd go, wow, your ideas are really good. He'd say, hey, your ideas are really good. We didn't agree politically, but because we had the relationship individually, we saw something that neither of us saw by ourselves. So I'm hoping that's what I bring.
That's great. Thank you very, very much. You can have a seat. I've got one gentleman, David Riffle, that would like to speak in your...
Mr. Mayor, he did not answer your other question.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Your intentions on
Your intentions in the future relative to this council with the April 7th election.
So I'll answer that as I answer people who say, what are you going to do when you finish Charis Bible College? I'll answer it this way. I felt a prompting to attend Bible College. I didn't get my next instruction. And so when I look at where I am today, it's like I see a need today. And so I'm engaging in that. I don't know what's going to happen come April, but I'll have a better idea because I'll be closer to graduation from Charis Bible College.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm finished, is that?
You are.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks. Great questions, and I hope I'm the successful candidate. I ask for your vote.
Mr. Riffle, is that pronounced correctly?
Hello, I'm David Riffle. I live at 452 Grey Horse Circle in Woodland Park. My wife and I moved up here 5 years ago to go to Charis Bible College and subsequently graduated and am now on staff there. And so in that position, Robert is in the practical government class, which I oversee. And so I can vouch for the character of him as a man of integrity, but also for a man of passion to see our government really be what it was intended to be. Robert teaches the U.S. Constitution to small groups of people who are interested in learning about how our country was founded and how it should be operating. And so he brings a world of experience of a life that is dedicated to serve others, educate them, help them to make this world a better place. He's been in the business world, a small business owner. He has been a servant in the courses that he's been taking, working as an intern and volunteering at every opportunity. So I believe his heart of service would serve the community well, and so I highly recommend him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kip, if you'll bring everybody back in. Double.
Who's got the pool? No.
Good question.
Yeah. I got to go back a couple pages from where we stopped because I had some stuff stuck together, but nothing big. We're just going to continue.
No. How's that? Okay. Before we vote, and this could actually wait till after we vote also, but sitting here as the mayor and part of this council, I can't tell you without asking council, but I know how proud we are, not only our community first and foremost, but of the applicants that we had tonight. Those people that sat in this room for the whole process will back me up in saying this is just an outstanding group of individuals, and we are so blessed to have you. There are many opportunities in our community, whether it be on council, in the election coming up, or even the mayor's availability, all kinds of options on different boards. And the group of folks that came tonight, I would encourage as much as I possibly can. I am amazed at this group of applicants and couldn't be prouder really to be a part of this community tonight. So there's only one of you that's going to get selected tonight, and so there'll be 7 people that will probably have some level of disappointment. That said, this council encourages you all to continue to, step up and do what you can. Clearly, you are all vested and very passionate about the city of Woodland Park, and we could not be happier. So I want to give you all a round of applause. I just think this process couldn't have been any better. That said, we have to make a decision. So Suzanne, if you'll hand out the ballots, and we will take care of business. Council, we're going to ask you to pick a number 1 choice and a number 2 choice.
Can we cheat?
In what term?
Can we copy?
Please don't copy.
I'm sorry. It's just hard.
Just first and second. That's just 1 and
2. Can I say something?
You please.
I just have to say how impressed I am. This is not easy at all. There were 8 that I'd like to choose. And I just would love to encourage each and every one of you to seriously consider service come April. There's 4 chairs available in April. And
3.
I think there's 4.
3.
There's 4 council.
Oh, well, mayor,
and
yes.
the mayor
there's 4.
are up for election in April. And tonight we only have an opportunity for 1, and that person will only serve until April. And so whomever is selected tonight will also have to run again to continue in that chair, or the opportunity to continue in that chair. So please, whomever is selected this evening, please don't be discouraged. And please continue to step forward and serve the community, because I'll tell you, it's very rewarding, and it's not easy, particularly in this situation. Even appointing people to boards and commissions gets very difficult. And I echo what the mayor said. I am impressed, and I've been involved as either staff or sitting here for 23 years, and this is the most and the best I've seen yet. So thank you very much.
Val?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of words. Likewise, very impressed. 8 great candidates, but I would recommend that we have a tremendous amount of boards and learning curve that typically are very good ways to learn how the city works, how the lead up to the council. Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, there's several other boards that are really valuable. There's the Citizen Academy we have now, thanks to the new city manager. There's a lot of things to learn outside just stepping into the fire pit here. And I would welcome you all to look at those opportunities. This is a whole bunch easier than what a lot of us have had to go through with elections. Some of us have lost several times on the way to this path. You get to just come up here and give a nice speech and things, and you have 1 out of 8 chance. But there's Planning Commission, there's Board of Adjustment, there's all kinds of other things, as I mentioned, that are good paths to learning how to get to the point where you decide what you want to do here and how the government actually works in Woodland Park. But I appreciate and applaud all of you for stepping forward, and excellent interviews. I've given thousands of interviews in my time at a corporate level, and This was a challenging session tonight. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say really quick, following on what Val had to say about joining boards or commissions, that is a really great way to learn, but also call us, call your elected officials, have coffee with us, have lunch with us. We are open and available to all of you. So if you want to know more and you want to learn and you want to get to know what's going on in the city and the issues we're facing and you're not quite sure or you're not sure how something works, call us. And we'll have lunch, we'll have coffee, we can have dinner. We're here for you, so don't hesitate. And thank you very much for applying and stepping up. It's really important, and I encourage every one of you to run. Definitely run.
I have made so many friends and met so many people being on council. I felt I had to qualify that when people came to the podium. I was not expecting so many people that I knew to run for this position. But I am so excited and charged up by the enthusiasm I seen from all of the candidates. I encourage you to continue in April to run for council. It is worthwhile and you'll enjoy it. And Robert, forget about it, okay? Keep going, and best of luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I know you all have butterflies, and I can see it in your faces, so I'd like to tell a little story because Mr. Schaefer's here. 2 years ago, Mr. Schaefer and I ran for this seat here, and we tied for votes, which is unheard of. And so we went through one election, and then we had to do a recount because we had to wait for the overseas ballots. We did another recount, and guess what? We tied again. So that's 2 elections we went through. And then the third one is we had to pick the high card out of a deck. So we had butterflies 3 times. And so I understand what you're going through right now, but everyone that was here tonight has a plan B, and plan B is in April. So if it doesn't work out for you tonight, keep your head up, move on, learn a little bit more, and you got plan B. But everybody answered the questions incredibly. I kind of chuckled because if I was there and I had to answer my own question, how would I answer it? I do have some ideas, and I do see more 10 years out, 20 years out where we should be, but everybody had some great ideas. So thank you very much for being here, and best of luck to all of you.
Thank you. Suzanne.
Well, I would just like to say, as your city clerk, one important date I would like for the 8 of you and anyone else interested in the room to remember is December 11th at 6 p.m. is our prospective candidate forum. So if you are interested, we'd love to have you join that evening, and you'd learn a lot more about what the position entails. And there'll be more information coming out on that. So I'm going to read the ballots out, and Mr. Tanchman's going to put them into the computer. I'll read them for the record. So Mayor Levy's first choice is Darwin Nacarado, and his second choice is Corey Young. Mr. Carr, I only have one choice for you.
That's correct. No, I don't have to have 2 at all.
It's the instructions.
I don't have to have 2.
Don't have to have 2?
No.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Carr, his first choice is Darwin Nacarado. Councilmember Case, her first choice is Darwin Nacarado. Second choice is Corey Young. Councilmember Labar, her first choice is Darwin Nacarado. Second choice is Corey Young. Councilmember Saunier, first choice is Rusty Neal. Second choice is Darwin Nacarado. Okay. Rusty Neal, 1, and then Darwin, 2. Good. And then Councilmember Saunier, his first... Sawyer, excuse me. His first choice is Darwin Nacarado, and his second choice is Rusty Neal.
Well, Council, we have a majority, and Darwin Nacarado will be sworn in right now.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I'm sorry, he's going to be sworn in tomorrow.
Give him a budget for him.
I'm sorry?
We have everything for him.
Okay, cool.
Yes. If he wants to join us for the work session.
Probably should.
So once again, thanks to everybody. Great conversation. Really appreciate the respect that everybody showed. And can encourage all 8 of you, because Darwin's going to be in the same spot come April 7th, to run for city council, because you're all well qualified and you would all add a great deal to our city council. This meeting will be adjourned. We will start again at 20 till 9 for our public session for the budget 2020. This meeting's adjourned. 20 till. Same place.